right, now call to order the September 17th regular meeting of the Wellington Board of Trustees, time being 6:30 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a roll call, please?
Trustee Gator,
Here.
trustee Dailey,
Present.
trustee Mason.
Here.
Trustee Teets.
Here.
Trustee Wiegand.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Here.
Mayor Shosse,
Here.
all are present.
Are there any amendments to this evening's agenda? No. Okay. Are there any conflicts of interest related to the agenda this evening? No. Okay. We will now move on to item B1, public comment. Any individual wishing to speak on non-agenda items are asked to sign up at the form on the podium. When at the podium, please also state your name. For the record, you will be limited to 3 minutes during public comment.
Not comparison completely off base, but it makes clear that this Christian trustees value Black Americans. Is to get and to know
stop it now and does.
Hi, everybody. Sheldon. Actually, want to
List of first priorities.
So as we
That
finish
that's-
doing what we got. If there's anything else that comes to mind that would fall under that safe routes to school type of issue. Most of the town has my niece's your way.
Only after I used my First Amendment. Of freedom of speech to express me by not allowing me to be involved in the town.
Okay, hold on. Oh.
My name is Tim Whitehouse, 3922 Grant Avenue, Wellington, Colorado. I served as trustee for 5 years here. And what I've been noticing since January to the election, I've watched in dismay as the national political dysfunction has roared into this town. Since then, I've been appalled by the partisan politics fully on display by some of this board, arguing with staff members in public meetings. The Water Now Alliance grant required 8 hours of public discussion for a simple conservation grant, which boggles the mind. A trustee was threatened with recall because they thought they might change their decision regarding this. And that's some pretty serious arm twisting. Driven, I believe, by partisan politics. Where's the timer?
I've got it.
Okay. And I did reach out to all the board members and I spoke with Trustee Mason and I received an email back from John Gator that suggested that the board had adopted a position that once something had been discussed and voted on, that it wasn't going to be brought back, which strikes me as bias at best and worse as complete ignorance. If new information comes to light, don't you want to consider it? If you could lower the water rates, would you not go back and revisit that? I mean, that policy is just bad, I think, if that is in fact policy. I don't know that. Several of the new board members ran stating the voice of the people is important, yet I heard nothing back from any except Mr. Gator and Trustee Mason. So I'm not sure where their voices are. I've heard there's 4 citizens petitions circulating in town. I've not seen one. I've talked to numerous people. I haven't seen that. They've said they've not seen them. Who are they being shopped to? Has anyone out here seen these 4 petitions? Raise of hands.
Please address the board.
Okay. How much time do I have, Mr. Mayor?
Got a minute and 20 seconds.
So, I know who's behind all these petitions, but the thing is, what I've never seen is a town so divided. There's websites popping up, rating people's performance, suggesting different things. As a board, you serve all the residents of this town, not just the people who agree with you, right? And someone who has a different opinion is not your enemy. It is not a dragon to be slain. We're in this together. We have to solve our problems together. And I think we can do a better job. I mean, we've got $80 million in water and wastewater and $10 million of transportation funding being kicked around by CDOT. That benefits everybody. These little things fighting. How is this making our town better? How is this helping all our residents? How is it making us more resilient? If it's creating partisanship and politics. I Trustee, and I believe you private
Wellington, such as like YMCA or any type of thing. I don't know, maybe you're aware of it, maybe you're not, but a lot of the facilities such as the gyms and everything up here are pretty maxed out. There's not a whole lot of availability to a lot of people. And we personally have a group that plays pickleball every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday over at the tennis courts. And we have tennis players, and some Saturdays we have up to six courts set up with maybe 18 to 20 players. So anyway, we have a vibrant community with a lot of active people who are very interested, and we would just like to request that you consider that and maybe take it, maybe
Yeah.
ponder that thought and let us know
Right.
if that's something that's possible.
Yeah, and too, I have talked with Eric a little bit about all this, and I'm really pushing for it because I think it would bring a lot of revenue to this community.
Mhm.
And because it is growing, and we're just asking, how do we go about getting grants, or how do we go about, getting a building? Because there are buildings that are empty. And is there any way, this is something that you guys can think about, and kind of get back to us. I know Eric has my phone number, has my email. I've been really talking this up and that. So, we just would appreciate it if you take it in consideration.
Yeah, and I'll just add one more point to that we visited with quite a few of the people that we play pickleball with and other residents in the community, and people are willing to come forward and pay a small minimal fee to provide that service. So I don't know that we would be in the position to purchase one, but if the city could do something for us, that would be revenue that would be brought in. So something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment going once, twice, 3 times. Sold. Thank you. Okay. On to the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of the minutes of the August 23rd, 2022 Board of Trustees meeting and the resolutions for appointments to the Community Activities Commission and the Wellington Housing Authority. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'm sorry, Mayor, I just have one adjustment to make to it. On the action items under number 2, it lists, trustee Kenny, seconded the motion for the rezoning, and that was me who seconded that. So that's the only area that I thought needed adjustment.
Okay.
I'll make that change.
Thank you.
I'm like, I didn't realize you were waiting for me. I
I
apologize.
thought Dan was gonna say something.
I was
Okay,
looking for it in the packet, so.
perfect. All right, may I get a motion to approve the adjusted consent agenda?
I'm making a motion to accept the adjusted consent agenda.
I'll second.
May I get a roll call, please?
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Dailey,
Yes.
trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee Teets,
Yes.
trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse,
Yes.
votes unanimous.
Okay, on to the action items. First one is going to be the 2023 fireworks display contract with B Lake Productions. And Hallie will be presenting for us this evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Board of Trustees.
Good evening.
I'm Hallie Sheldon, Senior Management Analyst for the Town of Wellington. And tonight before you is a contract regarding 2023 fireworks. Hard to think about that all the way next year, but with production and supply needs, we need to lock in prices and stuff. So in 2021, we had a RFP go out requesting pyrotechnic contractors to apply for our show. And so we had B Lake Productions, who has done our show for the past, I'd say 4 or 5 years, submit their competitive bid for that RFP. At that time, the price that was set for that total request was $40,000 as set by the Board of Trustees. B Lake Productions provided a competitive bid under that $40,000 with the opportunity to add video and audio, which we've seen in the past here, for an additional $11,500, which would result in a full contract award of $51,407. I'm not sure if Brian is here tonight. There you are. There's a lot of faces. So Brian is the owner of B Lake Productions. So I would offer him to come up here as well to answer any questions. But we will stand here.
Thank you. Trustee Wiegand, do you have any questions? Over time. Trustee Mason. Trustee Dailey. Trustee Gator.
So I just had a question. I know in the past when we've done the contract, have we combined the audiovisual and fireworks together into one contract, or have they always been two separate? I just don't remember.
They've been one contract.
Okay. Do you recall what our contract cost was for last year?
$41,083.
41, and that was the combined?
That was combined.
Okay.
So we've already have been questioning or inquiring with pricing for 2023.
Sure.
We are starting to see some containers starting to make it in finally. But we are seeing between a 15 and an 18% increase on those prices. We have seen other increases on labor and fees and things like that too, that kind of bring us up. We have about an 18% increase. It was very hard to put this number together because I was asked in January of 2022 to put out in a number for July of 2023. And so this is my best assumption. I think we will be okay. I was just looking over the numbers today again and checking on prices for certain things. I did go back and talk to the audio visual.
Okay.
And we are going to see about a 15% increase in there, but this here covers that because that's about what I put in. And I think we got kind of lucky there, but we should be pretty good on the prices with the product and stuff like that. But the sooner we can lock in and I can make commitments to the suppliers, the better off we will be. Hopefully we'll get a better variety than we did last year. We did have multiple repeat effects which I don't like, but it's like, oh gosh, another one of those, but it does seem like we're gonna be able to get a better selection this year. Things are starting a little bit, although prices are up about 12% on containers from $39,500 to $43,000 to bring a container over across from China. So I don't know. I don't know what's gonna continue. We just heard that inflation's still at about 8.5. And so hopefully we've seen the price increases already. And with the containers that are on the water, and we won't see much more, and we'll be able to lock in here in about the end of October is when we normally try to do that. So if that's something that works for you guys, we can try and get this thing locked in and go from there.
Got it.
So
The only other question I had, and you guys do an awesome job with everything. Do we need to lock everything in for both the fireworks and for the audio visual, or is there opportunity for us to kind of see if there can be any tweaking on that, or is that as good as we can do on that? I want to know from your end, because if you need both done, let's do both. If we can say, get the fireworks, and then if we can adjust the other one, great. If we just need to do it all, that's fine too. I just need to know from your standpoint.
I don't know how much we can tweak the audio visual. We can wait until we get here and see if they do have a 15% increase. I mean, that's what they just told me today on the phone, to plan for a 15% increase. But they said they would give us whatever they could. But, that's about $1,500 worth in the bid.
Got it.
So it's not the biggest part of it. Insurance is a concern, but we're still okay on the insurance that we're carrying now. Had a meeting with Dan and Hallie here about a week or so ago, and we went through some of the insurance. We don't really employ anybody. We get volunteers, and then we also have contractors. We kind of like make little subcontractors because they don't make $600 a year. And so we're able to fall underneath being an employer, which gets us out of a lot of insurance requirements. But if that changes or anything happens or rules change about that, or tax rules change, we may see a need to provide more insurance. And I'm told Dan, the last thing I want to do is not make this an insurance proposal with the side of fireworks. Okay, because it's insurance is getting a little crazy out there. So, but I think we're pretty good. I feel pretty confident where we're at right now. So, but yeah, we are seeing dramatic increases. We were up 18% over last year. So, which is a pretty good jump. So, okay.
And on insurance, Brian's been great to work with over the last couple of years, and we've had to tweak our insurance requirements a couple times, and just wanted to say that he's been very good to work with, and he's worked within the contract requirements.
So, okay,
I appreciate it.
You bet.
He's doing a great job.
Any other questions?
Trustee Teets.
I do have a question for you. The shooting site, did you get clarification on shooting site to verify that the town will be clearing that site for you to be able to shoot off?
We have it in this contract that the shoot site will be the Timming property.
Got it.
That is going to be a big issue if we lose that. And we're going to have to really try to think about what we're going to do. I think, if it's a possibility to work with Hooter School District for 24, which is past their warrant. I know all the warranty things that they've got. Maybe we can shoot over there. There's a lot of room. And that's what we need. We've got grandstands and the whole 9 yards. So that could be a very nice option, but we have to get their consent and what they require, and which may be an insurance issue. And, but other than that, we are concerned about a shoot site where we can get the crowd to gather and have room for the display fireworks. So it's an issue with everybody. I'm talking to some other towns too, to try to, if I can get a couple other towns, and I can split the insurance. But so far I haven't got that. So we're trying to try everything we can. So, okay.
Perfect.
I need help too. So if there's anybody that's interested in helping out with that, it's always a struggle to get people to show up. We had 9 people said, yeah, we'll be there. Great. We're so excited. 5 show up, and we're panicking to try to get that show set up, because it is quite the endeavor to get all the wiring done and timed up and ready to go. So it goes off on time and on schedule. So, but if anybody I'd like to play with fireworks for a day, you know how to get a hold of me. Okay, perfect. So, okay,
Thank you. Yeah, you always do a great job.
okay,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Are there any comments from the public on this agenda item? No. Okay. Can I get a motion and a second on this agenda item?
Move that we approve resolution 34-2022, contract award. I mean, that we approve contract award 2023 fireworks display for B Lake Productions in the amount of, for fireworks display and audiovisual in the amount of $51,407.
I second.
Are there any final comments from the board? May I get a roll call, please?
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Dailey,
Yes.
trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee Teets,
Yes.
trustee Wiegand.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes.
Thank you.
Vote is unanimous.
All right. Moving on, we have resolution number 34-2022, which will be presented by trustee Dailey.
I probably could stay at the dais, but this is worth standing for. So before you tonight is resolution number 34-2022. I'm going to introduce it simply by reading some of the, a majority of the resolution because it stands up for itself. I just want to make sure everybody's aware of exactly what's included. The Wellington Public Library, in cooperation with the town of Wellington, honors our history with focused intent on the future. The Wellington Public Library's mission is to serve and reflect every member of our community in an enlightened, democratic, and unified approach. The Wellington Public Library abides by the vision to promote curiosity, knowledge, and exploration through access to a myriad of global and innovative media applications and programs that foster a safe and inclusionary place to share and connect with our community. The town supports Wellington's public library's guiding ideals of community, connection, and curiosity. The town stands with the Wellington Public Library in the freedom of inquiry, open access to information, and exploration of ideas. The role of the Wellington Public Library is to connect and make available diverse works of information reflective of many perspectives and lived experiences. A vital role of the Wellington Public Library is to provide each individual access to information without placing a higher value on one individual's preferences over another's. The Wellington Board of Trustees serves as the Wellington Library Board and has a duty to maintain and operate the Wellington Public Library in accordance with the state statutes, the state constitution, and the United States Constitution. The Board of Trustees hereby supports the freedom to read and opposes book banning and other attempts to patrons' access to information. The Board of Trustees shall take no action to censor, suppress, remove, monitor, or place age restrictions on ideas or information in our public library. The Board of Trustees stands firmly with the mission of the Wellington Public Library, which is a vital part of our democratic fabric and provides knowledge access for all. This is the resolution in front of you. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the Board of Trustees on this? Start with trustee Teets.
I have more of questions, but I was hoping, is Ross here to answer questions this evening by chance?
I don't think that's
That,
appropriate.
yeah,
I
that,
think that trustee Dailey is the sponsor of this item and it's most appropriate for her to answer questions relative to the resolution.
So define relative to the resolution. So are we not allowed to ask questions on this before we?
are your questions on the resolution?
Well, they involve the resolution. I don't know, define, okay, I apologize, define resolution. So I have some questions on a viewpoint neutral direction, if we have those kind of things set up. Because
So I think what we're discussing now is the resolution we have at hand. So do you have questions on what was just presented?
Mm. You'll have to come back to me then.
Okay. Trustee Wiegand.
No questions, but I'll have comments later.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
No question.
Trustee Mason.
No questions, just comments.
Trustee Dailey.
No questions at this time, thanks.
Trustee Gator.
Do we want questions, comments now, later, just so I'm aware of what your request is?
Questions will be now, comments will be after the motion in the second.
Okay, I will share my comments at that point then.
Perfect. Trustee Teets.
No questions.
Perfect. All right. Are there any comments from the public regarding this agenda item? Before people speak, please keep in mind the applause. Keep it respectful. If I find anything out of line, I will stop the comment. And if it's above beyond, we can have people removed. So please keep that in mind.
We all know why we're here. It's
Go ahead and state your name, please.
Dawn Peacock.
Thanks, Don.
We all know why we're here. It started with a social media post stating no amount of posted.
Of a disagreement with its viewpoint, but content-based objections that lead to of another. Our right to read whatever, and infringe upon everyone's First Amendment right to read. The First Amendment does guarantee our right to read whatever we choose, but the law also protects the right and responsibility of parents and guardians to guide their own children's learning and book choices. No parent has the right to decide what another parent's child should or should not read. There are some questions that need to be considered here. Why an attempt to ban these books now, when many of these books have been in the library for years, if not decades? Why, in the core request, was who purchased these books part of the desired records request? Because this is just another example of the Gators targeting and mistreating town staff and creating manufactured chaos to distract us from their personal and political agendas. These bans are often targeting books that offer different perspectives other than the white, heterosexual, cis-normative view that has been dominant for so long. It is a concerted effort to ban LGBTQ representation and books by and about people of color. But these books and representations provide valuable resources for adolescents and others in the community who are suffering from isolation and otherness, feeling that they are different and alone. 50% of LGBTQ teens between the ages of 13 and 17 attempt suicide because they feel so alone. These books provide a voice that can support them and their mental health. These voices and these books are important. They're an important piece of the feeling of acceptance that is a basic human need. Please, please approve this resolution. As a parent and an advocate of the right of children to read, I believe any banning of books would be a terrible disservice to our community. I strongly urge you to pass Trustee Dailey's resolution to prevent book banning from our public library based on the religious beliefs of a few and to uphold the freedom to read for all of individuals in our community. The Supreme Court has ruled that the right of all children to read books free of viewpoint discrimination is guaranteed by the First Amendment. Not everyone in our community shares these views.
Thank you.
Fear and ignorance do not succeed the
Thank
quest
you.
for knowledge. Thank you.
Quick question. Whose camera is this? Just curious.
It's the towns.
Is it ours?
Yeah, because our internet's down. That GoPro.
This GoPro? It's a bad angle for me. I'm just curious.
This one right here?
Yeah.
That is mine.
Okay, just curious. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Good evening. My name is Estelle Davalos McCabe, 8518 4th Street, Wellington. Hello, my name is Estelle Davalos McCabe, 8518 4th Street, Wellington, Colorado. I am a Latin American, and I also have been working in the Poudre School District for almost 20 years and at Colorado State University. I also have traveled around the world. I simply want to say a couple things. One is that anyone under 18 should not be exposed to sexually explicit material. And I wonder if instead of having just a simple vote, a simple whatever we're calling it, if we bring the books out and let's read some of them and see what they look like. I've seen the devastation to children being exposed to sexually explicit material at a young age. And I just don't want to see any more of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Heather Zadina, North Wellington. Although our right to freedom of speech is expressly enshrined in our federal and state constitutions, the resolution before you tonight is a decisive action which will leave no doubt as to where the town of Wellington stands with regard to the rights of its citizens. This measure not only reinforces, but expressly protects our right to freedom of speech in the literary realm. This resolution protects the pursuit of intellectual expression, narrative illustration, creative thought, cathartic expression of trauma, and the open exchange of ideas, thoughts, and feelings. Yes, even those which may be controversial, disturbing, or distasteful. After all, we are only as civilized as our ability to freely discuss and debate. This resolution is a firm endorsement of that right. It is also the town's opportunity to refuse to fall down that slippery slope of using subjective determinations based upon antiquated and dubious notions proffered by a minority extremist faction to determine what materials residents are permitted to access. Moreover, this resolution ensures that Wellington's government stays limited, stays small, and does not fall into the all too easy trap of expanding its control past that which it has been elected to do. This is a resolution against big government. In a thinly veiled attempt to fearmonger and spread misinformation, opponents of this measure falsely claim that the texts and questions are located in the children's section or are otherwise somehow promoted to children and thus should be removed or at the very least regulated. This resolution is a resounding no by the town trustees upon being asked to usurp a fundamental responsibility of parents. To that end, I have a suggestion. Parent your own children. Know where they are, know who they are with. Set up your own family's rules and expectations. Do not place the burden of parenting your offspring upon governmental officials or town library staff. This is not their role, it is yours. And if your concern is that your child will skulk off to the library to read, then I'd call that a win, as there are a few greater ways to expand your mind, educate yourself, tap into your own creativity, and learn to understand others than by reading. If you don't believe me, perhaps you should try reading books instead of banning them. Finally, we're at a time in our country's history in which we are ever divided, ever at odds. It is now more than ever that we need to ensure that our public libraries are supported, both as a community resource and financially. Books, literature, the arts, this is where humanity finds its common ground, where we find the threads that show us our similarities, our shared experiences, and where we might find vestiges of where we were once not so different after all. And if you really want to use government to protect our town's children, use it where it's appropriate and fund our library.
Thank you.
Support it and fund it.
Everybody, Clayton Graves, 3255 Thundering Herd Way. So we'll go ahead and start with just a small portion of the article written by Trustee Gator's wife, Christine Gator. The issue at hand is that the town board of trustees is also the board for the public library in Wellington, and therefore they set the policy and vision for the library. Now that the board is aware of the fact that the library staff, it's bolded here, has taken it upon themselves to make pornographic books available in the children's section of the library, it goes on from there. The article it's a scary testament to how Christine and her supporters like to talk out of both sides of their mouth. They promote limited government involvement while simultaneously pushing to have our local government regulate our books in our public library. And the National Coalition Against Censorship states that critics of books are not concerned with law, literature, or even education. They use terms like pornography to convey their personal antipathy, to sexual content. I think that's pretty appropriate here. She's right. The goal here isn't to ban books. The goal is to defund and attack the library and its employees. The goal is to limit and control the flow of information and ideas that enable critical thinking. The goal is to stunt the growth of our town and drag it kicking and screaming back into what they believe to be the good old days. They don't just want this for their own children. They want this for yours too. They want to dictate what your children can and cannot see. Now, we've been here before. Christine and her supporters are notorious for bogging down our government system with petty tasks so that her husband can step in and forward their agenda unopposed. Our administration has lost many incredible employees due to some trustees' micromanagement. Christine complains on her website how her opposition appoints committee members, yet her husband formed the board that appointed her to the finance committee. The hypocrisy is palpable. This is not the Wellington we love, or the reason why our town continues to grow. On her website, Christine asks, why is Trustee Dailey attempting to remove the ability of the board to do its job? Isn't that what the public elects them to do? I can answer that. I voted for Trustee Dailey to do exactly what she's doing tonight, upholding our basic rights as outlined in our Constitution. Trustee Dailey is not looking to take power or choice from anyone. Ironically, her goal is in line with the values Christine and her supporters supposedly embody. making sure the people have the power to choose for themselves without interference from their government. Christine already has the power to choose what her children can and cannot read. Just asking the board to uphold my ability to do the same for my kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Johnny Genova, Wellington West. More than 7 in 10 voters, which is 71%, oppose efforts to remove books from public libraries, with majorities of voters across party lines opposed. I urge this board to adopt the resolution being proposed by Trustee Dailey, as it is in line with the majority of voters in this community. If we're not going to call this a book ban, then let's call it what it is, censorship. It's been asked here before, and I ask it again tonight. Is this how we want to be known? As the town that censors citizens and suppresses the freedoms of parents and their children. The very definition of censorship is the suppression of ideas and information that certain persons, individuals, groups, or government officials find objectionable or dangerous. It is no more complicated than someone saying, don't let anyone read this book because I object to it. Censors try to use the power of the state to impose their view of what is truthful or offensive. Censors pressure public institutions such as libraries to suppress and remove from public access information they judge inappropriate or dangerous so that no one else has the chance to read or view the material and make up their own minds about it. The censor wants to prejudge materials for everyone. No one should be able to prejudge what is acceptable for me or mine. In making their criticisms known, people who object to certain books are exercising the same rights as those who created the material to which they object. Their rights to voice opinions and try to persuade others is protected only if the rights of persons to express ideas they despise are also protected. The rights of both sides must be protected or neither will survive. It is often believed that this country was founded on Christianity. This is not entirely true. The founding fathers believed in the separation of church and state largely due to the tyranny of the Church of England. Although Orthodox Christians participated at every stage of the new republic, the majority of the founders opposed barriers to moral improvement and to social justice. They stood for rational inquiry, for skepticism about dogma and mystery, and for religious toleration. Many of its adherents advocated universal education, freedom of the press, and separation of church and state. While there has been evident confusion in this very room regarding religion, Black Lives Matter is not even remotely related to agnosticism or atheism. It must be noted that to censor books in the name of anything, even religion, is a violation. Full stop. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cass Corman, from Buffalo Creek. I am here in support of the resolution before you tonight. On August 2nd of this year, a list of books was submitted before you, and it was under the impression that these were all in the children's section. I went and looked, and with the exception of the Gary Paulson Lawn Boy book, no, they are not in the children's section. And the Gary Paulson book is probably not the book that the people would want removed, just as a note. Lolita and 50 Shades of Grey are not available to any child. I can guarantee I looked at that, and I'm pretty sure my librarian would question my 10-year-old if she decided she was going to check that one out. I hope that you continue to look at those options and see what they portray. I also did look up to see how many Christian related books were in our library, not the ones that were just available on library alone, which is something that our library participates in. And I would remind you that you're not going to be able to control what other libraries are do. So you're either going to cut us off from borrowing books from other libraries, or you're going to make a stand on this. There are 44 books that are listed in the card catalog that are either the Bible or discussions of the Bible or are considered biblical fiction stories. And I mean fiction by what the writer intended, like Bible school camp and those kind of things. I would be here on behalf of those books if any group in this town was trying to get those banned. I want everyone to know that I would fight for those books. In fact, I did notice that they are missing one version of the Bible that my grandfather, who liked the New Christian International Version, as opposed to the King James Version, which my other grandfather purported, is missing from the collection. And I would like to correct that on behalf of those two who would like to fight over that over every Thanksgiving. So in conclusion, I would be here fighting for anybody's rights for those books. Libraries are one of the cornerstones of democracy. That is one of the things that makes this country what it is the ability to get the information and disagree in a way that we can discuss and grow from it. And I would fight for anybody else's right to do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Dylan Delahoy. I would like to voice my support in favor of Resolution 34. The outrage we have witnessed over books containing mostly stories about survivors of sexual assault and LGBT relationships is sad and paints an unfortunate picture for anybody in our town who may not fit the Christian nationalist mold. Religious freedom does not mean the freedom to legislate biblical morality. In fact, it explicitly protects against that. And I would like to thank Trustee Dailey for helping to enshrine that protection. To get an idea of the false outrage over these current books, I did a cursory search on the library website as well, and just wanted to present a list of current terms available to browse for categories of books. Apologetics, Bible stories, biblical studies, biblical teaching, Christian inspirational, Christian fiction, Christian life, Christian living, Christian ministry, Christian nonfiction, Christian theology, Christianity, Christmas, clean and wholesome, history of biblical events, Jesus Christ, prayer, Christian life, personal growth, Christian life, women's issues, women in the Bible, and man-woman relationships. Coincidentally, there isn't a category to browse for LGBT books. When I did a search for LGBT, I found 91 items available through our library and 231 within the entire collection. When I searched for books representing my religious beliefs, I was able to find one book about atheism that is not a Christian perspective against atheism. When I searched for Christianity, I found 2,016 items available at our library and 15,766 within the entire collection. It's clear to see which ideology is the most represented. I would like to end by again supporting our public library's mission to maintain a balanced collection of materials that satisfies the educational, informational, and recreational needs of our community. And most importantly, I would like to also voice support for children and teens who are forced to grow up in repressive households and who deserve a place to go to explore, learn, and receive affirmation for issues they may be facing. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Hunter, the Knolls. I'd like to personally thank Trustee Dailey for doing this resolution and having the courage to do so. Banning books is ludicrous. We've done this over time and it's proved to be, it's wrong. It sets us back. We need to move forward as a community. And like Tim said earlier, stop being on either side of the table. Let's come to the middle, find a middle ground. You know, a bipartisanship is not my way or the highway. It's a let's get this together and do what's best for the community. All viewpoints should be heard. All viewpoints should be seen and read and learned. But let's find a common ground where we can all win together. You know, these people, you know, I've heard the First Amendment brought up by the people that want to ban these books. I asked them, do you understand the First Amendment? I don't think so. You know, some of you say you've been attacked here in public because of it. You seek public martyrdom while you secretly behind closed doors launch attacks against the library staff and other staff of this community. It's unacceptable. I get it. You're Christians. I was raised Catholic. I'm an atheist now. I understand both sides. We need to come together as a community, this inner fighting. And it's not just here, it's this whole country. We fight and we bicker and we can't find common ground and nothing gets done. So please pass this resolution. I think it's a good step forward for Wellington. I think it makes us look good. And I think we can all find a way through this. We just need to come together and stop bickering and, you know, it's he said, she said bullshit.
Cassandra Hadley. I'm not a big political person, never have been. My view on the political views are, you are here to be our neutral stand. That is my view. Libraries were my escape as a kid. They helped me grow up because I didn't have family to help me grow up. I grew up at 8 years old. I have been a firm believer that my child should have all the information my child could possibly need. Library policy clearly states no library cards to 11-year-old and under. It is the parent's job to choose their book and rent it out for them. Library has no say in it. I believe in this policy. Anyone from 18 and 11, if their parents do not want them to check out a specific reading, then it's the parent's job to say, I don't want them to check this out. I believe in Miss Dailey's. I do believe in what she said. I do believe in the library policy. I believe that everyone should have access to whatever they want to read. Because sometimes they can't get it from home, or they can't get it from a friend. Sometimes it's a subject that nobody understands. I have followed this belief when my child was born and diagnosed with autism. I had no clue the library was there. Regulating a library is losing information that everyone can use. Not just the rich, the poor, not just the rich and the people at an advantage, the poor, everyone. It is the equal marker for an entire community. Growing up in Brooklyn, New York, not the greatest place to grow up, but the library was there. It was a safe place, and I could find all the information I could possibly want in life. These books that are trying to be purged, or whatever word anyone wants to use, they're not specifically geared towards children. Children have their section, young adults have their section, adults have their section. It is up to the parent to guide their child, because they have access to way more than we could possibly block. And I'm pretty sure it's way worse. And at the end of the day, we need to trust in our own parenting to guide their own morals. Nobody else should be the dictator of that.
Thank you.
Excuse me. The so-called proclamation nowhere mentions the real issue which is being discussed, which is pornographic books in the library. Our library does many good things. However, having pornographic books available, especially to young children, is not one of them. Pornographic literature does not, as this proclamation says, honor our history, represent everyone in the community, unify people, provide democracy when we're really a republic, enhance enlightenment, create innovative programs, and other great sounding ideas and words thrown together to make this proclamation, this resolution sound wonderful. Curiosity and exploration of ideas are not always a good idea, especially when it involves evil thoughts, words, bad words, and the demonic, which is what many of the books that we're talking about are about. Our society has increasingly gone down the wrong path in the last couple, well, not only decades, but the last, half century. This proclamation is nothing more than an excuse to continue down the path of destruction of that our national leaders have been leading us in. It's time that we take a stand for morality. Woe to them who call good evil and evil good. We who disagree with this so-called resolution, proclamation, or dissemination for pornographic works hereby ask the Board of Trustees that they please stand with our community, and especially our young people, and protect the moral fabric of our town of Wellington, our state, and our nation. We ask you to vote against adopting this proclamation, because in voting for it, you are in fact voting for the promotion of materials which would contribute to the demoralization of our young people and society in the future. It is not supporting our library that is important here and what's happening. It is about doing what is right and good for the citizens of our community and our town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening, guys. My name is Aaron Genova, and I live over in Wellington West. I'll keep it very short. I urge the board to adopt this resolution. I think we should move past this latest attempt at drumming up yet another culture war. I'm in full support of this library and its staff as it is. The problems with our town and the state and the nation don't lie in that library. We have other issues that we need to be focusing on, which are far more important than these books. Let's let the library staff do what they're paid to do, just do their jobs. They're qualified, that's why they're doing it. So again, I urge you to adopt this resolution.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Lisa Cholet, Wellington Downs. I stand in support of this resolution. Ronald Reagan said, government's first duty is to protect the people, not run their lives. My statement is a reflection of this. Judy Blume, known as the Queen of Teen, was instrumental in opening my eyes to an ever-changing body and mind as a young girl. Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret was instrumental in calming my nerves as a 6th grade girl. It allowed me to find out I was normal when I wasn't sure. Back then, it wasn't abnormal for parents to ignore tough subjects, thinking if we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. I don't blame my parents. It was how they were raised. Judy Blume faced censorship and said this in response. I believe that censorship grows out of fear, and because fear is contagious, some parents are easily swayed. Book banning satisfies their need to feel in control of their children's lives. This fear is often disguised as moral outrage. They want to believe that if their children don't read about it, their children won't know about it. And if they don't know about it, it won't happen. In this day and age of technology, I think we can all agree that this type of censorship disguised as protection is misguided at best and oppression at worst. Just as people often make the argument guns don't kill, people do. Books don't corrupt, people do. As a parent, I do not want my First Amendment rights or those of my children and grandchildren dictated by those who would use fear as a tool of control. Throwing around words such as pornography, accusing our amazing librarian of purposely placing pornography in our library, calling citizens to encourage them to attend this meeting because of pornography being added to our library, and more, are picture-perfect examples of fear tactics. Thomas Jefferson famously said, when the people fear their government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. In a time when our elected officials are short on governance and long on politicking, I expect better from the 7 of you elected to represent all of us. Governance is overseeing the control and direction of our town for the betterment of all. Politicking is engaging in partisan political actions that benefit only you and those you support, those who agree with you. When this issue first came to light at a previous board meeting, I heard numerous community members speak of their beliefs in religion. They argued the library was not being inclusive of their religious beliefs. The originator of the core request and Facebook post wanting to get rid of these books stated her beliefs were not being considered in the library. Inclusivity of all religious beliefs in the library in the form of books is important. She was asking for exclusivity of all other beliefs, morals, parenting styles, and freedoms, except for hers and those who agree with her. This country was founded on many ideals, but the most important was freedom. Freedom from the Church of England, freedom from tyranny, freedom to express one's thoughts without fear of retribution. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sienna Zadina and I live in North Wellington.
Get that mic a little closer. You're doing great.
My name is Sienna Zadina and I live in North Wellington. This is my first argument. I'm not trying to be rude, but you can't tell me what I can and cannot read. Books are books, and books for me are a whole new world unlocked as a teenager. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Karen Eifert. I live in the Knolls. And I don't know how many times I've sat up here and said, my kids have special needs and I have PTSD and all these types of things, but it's so hard to talk. What people don't realize, because I don't share with a lot of people, is I survived my childhood, so my children would never have to go through the same. And everybody thinks this is a left side and right side issue. Guess what? I was that kid. growing up in foster care, all kinds of unmentionable things happening to me. And I went with my school to a public library. And I was walking around, not paying attention, not doing what the teacher said. And she said, Karen, you need to pick up a book and read. So I reached out to the first book. That first book was written by a very courageous woman who had been through the exact same things in her life as I had been in my life. My abuse started as my first memory as 3 years old in this world, was horrific. And it wasn't until the age of 7 when I picked up this book and learned, oh my God, this doesn't happen to everybody. This isn't normal. I should find a voice. I should tell somebody. It took several more years to find that voice and to find that courage, but it was a book in a public library. And if you read that book back in that time frame in the 70s, the 80s, you would have think they would have banned that book because she didn't pull any punches about what happened to her or her assaults or any of those things happening. And some people might say, well, that should have been banned because it's talking about sexual things. Well, guess what? Those sexual things were happening to me, and those sexual things happen to young ladies every single day. And there's a lot of families who don't know how to talk about it, who sweep it under the rug. There's all kinds of areas where you can go to, but I'll tell you from personal experience, when you're in it, you don't think anybody else is out there. You don't think anybody else can hear your voice. So I'm completely against book banning. And I think that the library policy of not having a library card until you're 11 is wonderful. And my son comes to the library. My son knows about my trauma. He knows about my family. He knows about all of it because I figured it was my job to teach him how to survive and how to live his life. I suffered my whole life so that this child could have his own and not have it done that way. And if this book had not been available to me at that time, I don't know where I would have been ended up at. I'm not saying every book is wonderful or every book is bad, but banning books I think is totally irresponsible. And there needs to be, like they have the system in place for children of 11 years old, then they can get a library card. But I tell you what, my son's 13 and I still come to the library with him and we still go and look at those books, whatever he wants to check out. And if it's something controversial, I say, okay, let's find one together. And I think all parents should be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know how you follow something like that. My name is Chantel Garmin Cooley, live in Park Meadows. I had no intention on speaking tonight, as you probably. I'm also not a public speaker in any way, shape, or form, so bear with me, please. I love Jesus. I'm sorry.
Okay.
There have been many times in this community I have not felt safe. And let me tell you why. I am a gay Christian with a wife and 2 beautiful boys who I am trying to raise, loving God, loving people, looking out for one another. So I am a parent just like most of you, doing my best to raise good kids. Books are a portal to different life experiences. I think that the use of pornography is an intentional word. I think if we look at books in history that have been banned, a lot of them center around a lot of injustices. It tackles stories of racism, sexuality, gender. A lot of LGBTQ books end up on that ban list. And I just want to share one thing with you guys. One child every 45 seconds tries to commit suicide. An LGBTQ child tries to commit suicide once every 45 seconds. How many since we've been sitting out here? have had to go through that because they don't know that they're okay, that they have to hear that they are evil. I didn't come out until I was 35 for that very reason. And I tried to kill myself 5 times in that time, 5 times, because I was evil. We don't want to speak that out to our children, the children of Wellington. We don't want them to feel like that's where they're headed. They are not evil. And you're right, you are their parent. So go parent them. Love them no matter what. And let them know that they're not evil or strange or not loved by God. I am still dealing with that. I have a spiritual trauma therapist. Think about that. Think about that word. That shouldn't exist. We're Christians. We love Jesus, the very person that goes out there and loves everybody unconditionally. But yet someone like me had to grow up believing that I was just not good enough. Don't let that happen to our kids, please.
Thank you.
Hi, Cam Teets. So I'm a Christian, I'm a Republican, and if you get on my wrong side, I'm probably a bit of an arsehole too. I'm gonna tell you right now, don't ban no books, but let's not exclude any either. There's a lot you're missing, if you think about it. Part of being a strong believer in the Constitution is the fact that you have to take the good with the bad if you want to truly believe in the Constitution and democracy. That's really all I have to say, other than the fact you guys got a budget here of what, $500,000, $400,000 a year for this building. You see roughly 250 people in this library every month. Is that roughly where we are? Do we have those numbers? Patty?
This is a comment, not question.
Okay. Well, you're spending about $133 for every person who walks through the door to use the library of my taxpayer dollars. You could put in a computer lab or a wiffle ball court or something like that. Spend that money a little better. It's 2022. This stuff's all going away. You're going to have Google. Take care.
Thank you.
Stephanie Owen Steiner. I'm in Buffalo Creek. I'm hoping that you guys will vote for this resolution. I just wanted to point out some of the hypocrisy that I've seen Ms. Gator post and talk about how we continually waste taxpayer dollars and utilize our staff for useless things and waste our taxpayer money on that. How much taxpayer money are we wasting having to continually beat this dead horse? So please pass this resolution so we can move on to more important things for our town.
Thank you.
Hi, Kathy White Dallas. I live in Viewpoint. And, I've agreed with a lot of people that have, what they've said about the First Amendment and not banning books. But Christine mentioned to me before, I'm not on social media, so I have no idea if it was before, during, or after the, whenever the social media stuff happened. I never read it myself. I can't comment on that. But she just said that she had been pretty surprised by some of the books that were in the young adult teen section. Now, I haven't been in the library in a while because I wouldn't wear a mask and they wouldn't let me in the library. So I got out of the habit of going. But when I went, I recalled that there was a children's picture book section, but no, the children's chapter book section was in another part, and it was kind of teen. So you had Magic Tree, some classes. Remember, and I just figured it was the children. Yes. don't think Christine ever wanted to ban anything. She wanted things that she thought were a little sketchy to get moved over to the adult section. And that's, you know, that was from our personal conversation. Christine Gator is a really good person, a really good-hearted person. And I am appalled with the hate that gets directed to her. I mean, it makes me shake. I don't know how she stands it. So I hope that the people who were here that all had some personal grudge, just maybe try to be nicer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bilal Sayar. I'm over in Cottonwood Park. I just want to say thank you guys for presenting this resolution. I think we've seen a lot of support for it. And I really appreciate everyone coming out and telling some of their stories on how they have used the library in the past and how it's helped them through their traumas and how useful it has been. Now, I'm a first-generation immigrant to the United States. And one thing that I really appreciated from the library is they let me read any book. You know, my parents didn't really speak English, so I could really get any book. And what I'm finding is that there are some discussions parents want to have with their kids, and there are some discussions parents want to avoid having with their kids. My parents weren't that lucky, and I could ask them pretty much anything since I could read anything. So we had a lot of tough discussions, but I think it's, depending on how you approach it, it could be a very valuable lesson. And I think avoiding those discussions by removing the books available is not the way to go about it. I love how there's a limit on getting the library cards. You know, it adds some supervision to what books they could get and allows the parents to parent their kids however they want. But I don't think removing books or suggesting we remove books is the way to go about it. So I appreciate everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine Gator, to correct false assumptions, I did not write the article on connecting Larimer, nor do I have anything to do with that website, but thank you for thinking of me. This resolution, if you vote yes, you are endorsing children to read pornography without their parents' permission. Since these books are in the young adult section, they're appropriate to read. He held my gaze through the kiss, even though I pushed myself closer, biting back a small noise when he brushed against my stomach. His hands grazed my hips, my waist, and then held me there. As he lowered his head, seized the kiss. A brush of his tongue against the seam of my lips had me opening full of him. That proves my point that this is not appropriate. They just said it's not appropriate.
Order.
I moaned, then tilted my head back to give him
Miss
better
Gator.
access.
So the kids that are under 11, they have to have their parents present to get permission to get the books. Have you asked the parents if you have permission to read this?
This is for 12 to 17-year-olds.
Would you like to headline?
I have 3 minutes. I would like to read what is in the library. Her legs spread while a guy
Okay,
knelt in front
Miss
of
Gator,
her, giving her
Miss
oral
Gator,
sex.
Miss Gator,
These are in the
please.
young adult section.
Okay, there are children present here. It is a different situation, in my opinion, when the child cannot access the book without their parents' permission under the age of 11. After that,
They can
they can,
access
yeah,
this.
they sure can.
So-
But we do not need to force that access on them through Zoom. We do not need to force it to the crowd. So please do not read those any further.
That just proves my point. These should not be read without parents' permission, as you just said, and therefore they need to be removed from the young adult section and only allowed with parents' permission to be checked out. You just proved my point. Thank you very much.
Please.
Hi, Jesse Andreen from the Harvest Village neighborhood. Yeah, this is just sad. Sad that this is what's happening. I didn't think I'd be emotional, sorry. So I'm certainly not in support of banning books at all. I agree with the sentiment of a lot of what it was said, but you know, I've noticed with my own experience with my kids, no, you're okay. We typically actually go to the Pooter Library. So this is not an attack on the Wellington Library, but I've noticed in the last few years, there has been a push to put certain books that when I first saw them in the library, it really concerned me. And I do feel like there's some kind of agenda to confuse kids and their identities, confuse their little hearts and minds about who they are. And so that's what I have a problem with, is kind of highlighting some of those books. And I don't know if that's happening in our library. I do believe that they have a right to be in the library. That's not something that, you know, I would ever advocate for, is removing them. But I like the idea of having a requirement for parental consent to check out those books. And I know that's kind of a step further with not allowing kids to have their own library card until they're 11. But yeah, so I just, you know, I don't think we should ban books, but I think that there are safety precautions put in place for a reason. I heard a comparison today that really stuck out to me and I feel is appropriate about not letting kids go to R-rated movies. It's kind of the same thing. You know, there's an option for parents to take their kids to those movies, but not an option for the kids to go themselves. And so I think if we could kind of just place some more restrictions on those books, that might be a good thing. But yeah, as a general comment, someone mentioned that our town should look good. And I don't think our job as a town is to look good. I think that when we're making decisions, it should be for the people of our town, not necessarily trying to influence other areas. It should be making the right choices for our town. But yeah, I appreciate this discussion and I hope that we can all treat each other with more respect, whether we agree with certain people or not. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nicole Riesfeld. I live on County Road 3. I am for the resolution. I am an educator and I am a mom. I believe that the library should be able to provide information to anyone who wants it and for any purposes that they need the information for. I believe that even if your child is above the age of 11, you still have the ability to come in and look at the books that they're checking out and then decide whether that is appropriate for your child. It is not appropriate for those restrictions to be placed on other people's children or anyone. So I really hope that you will accept this resolution, and book banning is something that we should never look upon favorably. Book banners in history never turn out well. So please accept the resolution.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Lisa Christopherson, business owner, Main Street. I just wanted to add on to several, there's so many amazing things that were said tonight. I didn't think I'd have to get up, but I wanted to add on one little thing. I have worked lately in the last few weeks with some survivors that are really struggling through some things, survivors of human trafficking that have been exploited since very young age. Karen's story really got to my heart, and that's exactly why I want to reach out and help individuals like this. So what they told me recently, within the last 2 weeks, is that if they would have been able to, as a young teen, have someone, whether it was parents, neighbor, grandma, grandpa, talk to them about instances that they were learning about that is in our community, they would have been able to handle themselves a little bit better. In that, I would like to say that when I found out tonight that you have to be 11 or 12 to get a library card, I think that's excellent, because when we do our trainings in Poudre School District for anti-trafficking and to teach and educate a child so they don't get trafficked, we always would love to start at age 12. So I love that you can come in and get a report from the library as a parent. I would love that because I took that on when I raised my own kids and said, okay, let's look at what's popular in the culture now and let's read it together. And it's going to be uncomfortable and there's going to be things we need to talk about, but I need you to be educated because in a few short years from 12, they're on their own. So I just wanted to reiterate all those great things that were said tonight. And from a perspective of fighting human trafficking, that would be excellent if we have more of those conversations with our young kiddos.
Thank you.
Well, if everybody else is done, I'm Rick Freeman. I live in Viewpoint. Again, I'm appalled at some of the lack of respect in this room tonight, but hopefully that'll improve after we all talk about it. I thought this resolution was already passed. I'm confused. This is not in effect.
Not
Okay,
yet.
well, I hope once it's passed, but I hope once it's passed, when I bring books in to donate them to the library, if the religious books are not taken out. Because when I brought about 30 books in, I had 6 of them that had religious connotations. And I was very offended that I couldn't bring those to the library. So that's my thought. But yeah, I think we need to pass a resolution. Any type of censorship is against the First Amendment. So let's do the right thing here, folks.
Thank you. All right, hearing no more further public comment, I would like to call a 5-minute recess before we address this. Yeah. How you been? Well, that'll be the destruction, right? I know, right? Yeah. Well. That's right. Where is it? Now it's.
I don't know. And you can just sound here.
I'd like to call the September 13th meeting back in session, time being 8:08 p.m. May I get a motion and a second on this agenda item?
I'd like to make a motion wholeheartedly and proudly to support Resolution 34-2022, a resolution supporting the mission of the Wellington Public Library. Second.
Any final comments from the board on this agenda item? Starting with Trustee Mason.
This is going to be kind of long-winded, so I apologize. A resident reminded me of an 1821 quote by Jewish poet and writer Heinrich Heine. Where they burn books, they will too, in the end, burn people. Having also lived in Germany, I think Heine's quote may have come just about 100 years before its time. As a United States Marine Corps veteran and as part of taking this office, I promise to support and defend the United States Constitution, including that of the First Amendment. Let us not forget the reason why this resolution supporting the library is before the board. It is not because we are abdicating our duties. It is because there was very specifically a discussion regarding book banning going on in Wellington, and there is screenshot evidence to prove it. I want to make it very clear that I will not support any book banning, and I am in full support of this resolution. I want to read a piece from an article, Access to Library Resources and services for minors in interpretation of the Library Bill of Rights by the American Library Association. The association, by the way, before I get to the quote, is the oldest and largest library association in the world with 49,727 members as of 2021. The quote reads, "The mission, goals, and objectives of libraries cannot authorize libraries and their governing bodies to assume, abrogate, or overrule the rights and responsibilities of parents and guardians. As Libraries in American Value, adopted on February 3rd, 1999 by the ALA Council states, we affirm the responsibility and the right of all parents and guardians to guide their own children's use of the library and the resources and its services. Libraries and their governing bodies cannot assume the role of parents or the functions of parental authority in the private relationship between parent and child. Libraries and their governing bodies shall ensure only parents and guardians have the right and responsibility to determine their children's and only their children's access to library resources. Parents and guardians who do not want their children to have access to specific library services, materials, or facilities should so advise their own children. Libraries and governing bodies should not use rating systems to inhibit a minor's access to materials." Now, I believe it's pretty clear that as soon as if you've signed this card for your youth under the age of 17, that you've given permission for your child to check out books from our public library. I would expect any reasonable parent to ask their child what they've checked out from the library in the event they are unaccompanied to the library. The library cannot, nor should it, play an authoritative role in a role that should be up to parents. The onus here should be on parents to manage their children's access on an age-appropriate level.
Trustee Mason, at what age does that have to be signed for? When they're under what age?
Under 17.
Thank you. Trustee Dailey.
First and foremost, I do want to apologize for speaking out of turn earlier. So thank you for the reminder, and I apologize for that. Another thing is I got a lot of credit earlier as if I had written all of these beautiful words. I did provide a direction and idea, but we have some very talented staff that were able to somehow read my mind and put everything on paper more beautifully than I could have ever done it. So thank you to them for crafting such a beautiful document. Okay, we have a great opportunity here from this board, in my opinion. A lot of things will go wrong or bad, and then we address them. Usually at the point where it's become a full-on war at some points. We have the opportunity right now to stop this war in this case by proactively stating the intent and support for our community and our library. And this is an effort that I think would be a great example for other things that come up in our community of saying, hey, this is coming. We know that's the case. What can we do proactively to make sure our community still stands as one, where they feel supported and part of Wellington, rather than waiting for a few to tear it down and start a war? Why don't we proactively make a statement and provide that support? And I think this is the opportunity we have in front of us. I was going to quote the same quote that you did, because it hurt me when I read it, and it was one of our community members sent it in. So those are all the wonderful and beautiful things I have to say. I do have some things that aren't as wonderful and beautiful. Out of all the comments I've received, and I've had more outpouring of support for this from so many different groups of people, with the exception of one topic, this is the second most I've ever heard from our people. Look at the room right now. You guys are here, you're standing up. So I appreciate that so much. I encourage you to do that for everything. I want to see you here in 2 weeks and next week if you want to come to our working session. There were only a few comments against this resolution that were outside of comments that were xenophobic, homophobic, and racist. There are only a few comments against this resolution that were not coming from a position of hate. And when I read those, if there is opposition to something, but it draws from that source, I cannot use that to sway my opinion on what I'm supposed to do that's right for our community. So I do want to say that because it hurts my heart, and to be able to read that and see that and hear it is not right for our town and not good for us. What else is really horrible is our staff, on behalf of this beginning a battle of a war, has been alleged to provide pornographic materials to children, which is obviously untrue. And shame on you, to whoever said that. That's disgusting. Okay? I want to make that very clear. Impersonating a government agency to give more weight to your argument is also disgusting. Shame on you. So I do also want to say those things because those are a few of the horrible, hateful items that have come to light because of this situation. And to end it on a more positive note, we have an amazing library. I've never seen it flourish like it does right now. You walk in today and see how beautiful it is, how everything outside's improved. Thank you to the Eagle Scouts and everybody contributing to that, because this is what community is about. This is what libraries develop. We've never seen such amazing things outside of the leadership that we have in our staff right now. So I want to end on that note because we have an amazing, amazing opportunity in our town, and it all starts in this building. So thank you guys for attending. Again, I appreciate you being here. I urge you to always come back. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Gator.
Thank you, Mayor. I've written things down so I can stay under the 5 minutes. So I will make sure to get in that. I did want to start by making a couple of things clear. I do support the mission and vision of our library as they've been presented to our Board of Trustees. I also think our library staff has done a great job bringing excitement to our town around the library and encouraging more people to engage in reading. I also want to make it very clear that I have no issue with any of our staff members at the library or elsewhere at town. The only accusations of that have come from members of the community. Unfortunately, the resolution is not about supporting the library. It's a resolution that says that we as a library board should neglect a small portion of our job. While we may all have different ideas about what is or is not appropriate to be in our library, that is part of our job to make policy regarding what should or should not be carried. A lot of comments have been around the First Amendment, so I'd like to read that just so that we're all clear on exactly what that says. Congress shall make no law restricting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Many have suggested that if we limit what books are in our library, then we are limiting people's First Amendment rights. I would like to point out that the First Amendment says absolutely nothing about the government providing anyone with any information free or otherwise. According to Google, there are over 130 million books, and that number was from 2010, so it's probably much higher now. Our library has under 20,000 titles on our shelves, quite a bit less than 130 million. What this means is that our library is constantly making decisions about what books should or should not be on our shelves. As a library board, part of that job is working with staff to determine and approve policies that drive those decisions. Speaking to the banning of books, the fact that we might choose not to carry any specific book does not mean that a book is banned. Anyone is free to go and pick up their own copy of the book at any time from any other source. I know that many books that I and my family like to read are not carried by our local library, and this means that I have to go and find another source for my book. Not that I get angry and accuse the library of banning my books. The issue that's really at the heart of this comes down to concerns that were raised by residents about either sexually explicit or pornographic materials in our library. I'd like to read to you the definition of pornography. A depiction of erotic behavior, as in pictures or writing intended to cause sexual excitement, number one, or number two, material such as books or a photograph that depicts erotic behavior and is intended to cause sexual excitement. I'd also like to read to you from the state law, CRS 18-7-502. Number one, it shall be unlawful for any person knowingly to sell or loan for monetary consideration to a child, A, any picture, photograph, drawing, sculpture, motion picture film, or similar visual representation, or image of a person or portion of human body which depicts sexually explicit nudity, sexual conduct, or sadomasochistic abuse, and which, taken as a whole, is harmful to children. Or B, any book, pamphlet, magazine, printed matter, however reproduced, or sound recording which contains any matter enumerated in paragraph A of this subsection 1, or explicit and detailed verbal descriptions or narrative accounts of sexual excitement, sexual conduct, or sadomasochistic abuse, and which, taken as a whole, is harmful to children. While this section of Colorado state law specifically speaks to the selling of these materials, the key point in both sections is, taken as a whole, is harmful to children. Even in our state law, we acknowledge that these are not good materials for our children. I have concerns that we would make these materials available to children in our library, especially with some of the materials not necessarily being in the adult section, but potentially in the young adult section. If we as a board determine for some reason, which I don't know what that would be, that we must carry these pornographic or sexually explicit materials in our library, then it needs to be properly controlled, and parents need to be made aware of what's there so that they have the ability to say if they do or do not want their children to have access to it. If parents want to expose their children to these type of materials in their own home, that is their choice as a parent to make. But this is not material that we as a town should be providing to children. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Teets.
Okay, so I too prepared something so I would not get off track. I will not support the banning of books in our public library. I am grateful for the work that Ross and his staff has placed into our library over the last 2 years. I've had the privilege of participating in a few of the film fests, as well as story time with my 4-year-old. Ross's efforts do not go unrecognized by me and many others in the community. Addressing the allegations of censorship, it's strange because everyone in this room should be able to acknowledge that removing a book from a library is not censorship, nor does it limit anyone's ability to buy the book online or at a local store. Categories and collections regularly change within all libraries across the world. I have called multiple, verified this information. There's also no law that states a library has to provide every book to every resident. We do have limited space in our library. That still does not change my mind that I do not support banning books in Wellington. I do or would support an idea of looking at something, now finding out that we do have the cards. I was unaware of them. I signed one many years ago for my son, and I wasn't aware that that had changed. It's nice to know it hasn't changed. Does this maybe need to transition to 18 instead of 17? I don't know, pending the law. So my stance is I won't support banning them, but I would really like to, one, seek clarification on, can we vote against a law set in place? Two, seek clarification on what our library board actually does. I just found out a little while ago that we were the town of Wellington's library board. So I don't know if this is something that we can address at a later time to work out the details. At the end of the day, I think we truly need to come together as a community, but we also need to recognize that there are people on both sides of this coin. There's not one person that feels one way and one single person that feels another way. This is a multitude of people that we heard from last meeting that were against the books. There's some that we have heard this meeting, they would like the books moved to a different section. I think what that looks like to us is important to discuss, but I would just like to point out that we probably do need to know what our library board is required or supposed to do, whether that is specifically assigned to our librarian, or we look at a committee where people get involved in setting those books and what they want to see collections look like. I think it's definitely something we could possibly readdress in a work session, but at this time, I won't support removing any books from our library.
Thank you. Trustee Wiegand.
Well, thank you. My name is Wiegand. My mom's name is Feldman, so I do have Jewish heritage here. So I've heard people talk about Nazis and banning books and all this type of stuff. So, you know, the library is a public entity. You know, it's not a private one. I saw some emails that we're supposed to be, you know, have everything open or control or whatever. That it's a public entity controlled by the taxpayers' money. And also too, we are the library board, so we should have some control over it, I would think. I am absolutely not for book banning. But I am a Christian. But I think that we need to use common sense in whatever we do. I think we need to look at age appropriate, not age restriction. I definitely, you know, we should never restrict stuff in the library, but maybe we should have it more age appropriate. So again, it's just, I think, having better management techniques, not saying that our librarian's done a bad job, but from what I've heard, I think he's done a great job and he's been a great asset to the community. You know, also, I think probably one of the biggest things that I've been hearing here, at least actually from both sides, you know, maybe we need to have guidelines where parents can actually have some control over what their kids read. You know, if you don't want to have the guidelines, fantastic. Let your kids read whatever they would like to. But if you are a parent out here, if you're concerned, absolutely, I think they should too. I mean, I myself would not allow my kids, if I knew, which they probably were reading some of the stuff out there, but I would not be in favor of doing, you know, having them read any and all the books out there. But that's my own personal opinion. Oh, also too, I want to address one other thing too. I heard that I was, how would you say it, making derogatory remarks about agnostics and atheists and people with different beliefs. And again, everybody has their own belief systems out there. And again, we need to be able to represent all the people, not one, the other, or the other. It's all together. We're all inclusive as a town. So again, you know, when somebody brought that up earlier, no, I wasn't degrading somebody else. I just said that Christians deserved as much respect and as much representation as anybody and everybody else. They are part of this community too. And, you know, Martin Luther King Jr., he talked about reconciliation out there. Reconciliation is not having winners or losing, but working together to try to get to a common goal. When you have a winner, when you have a loser, you're going to have a lot of animosity. So that's why we need to work together. We need to get, you know, people on the same wavelengths where they're not yelling and screaming and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So again, that's a little bit of respect too out there. You know, what I see in this resolution here, you know, I think overall it's very well written, but there's a few things that I do not like in it. I wish it was more clarified at that point. And with a couple word changes, I could vote for it. I'm not going to right now. I may probably just abstain from a vote because there's a few things I would like to have different in there. And I'd love to see it come to a different work session. So maybe we could just tweak a few things and we could have a unanimous vote on this, where I think it would look a hell of a lot better to everybody if we voted unanimously on something instead of a 5, 2, 4, 3, 6, whatever. I don't think that really represents the town that well. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, first, I'd like to thank everybody in the room that had the courage to share their personal survivor story. I don't have that same courage. I won't share my survivor story today. But my dad wasn't around and my mom was busy working, and I spent my time at the local public library. My brother and I rode our bikes there all the time in the summer and after school. And if it wasn't for the local public library, I wholeheartedly support what Lisa Christopherson shared. And I didn't get my education from pornography. My favorite stories were Greek mythology. Those are great classics. And those were overlooked in the conversation this evening, but they talk about rape and incest and bestiality. But every Greek mythology story has a lesson behind it that's powerful, that teaches us something that we can teach our children or that we can carry with us. This isn't about left or right. This is about parenting. I don't want anybody in this room to tell me how to parent my child, and I'm not going to tell you how to parent yours. And I wholeheartedly, 100% support this resolution and what it stands for. Thank you, Trustee Dailey, for having the courage to bring this to the board.
So obviously it's been a interesting subject, a tough subject. One thing I'd really like to focus on is as a town, you know, there has been disrespect that's gone on between individuals back and forth from one side to the other. I don't care who started it. I don't care who's trying to finish it. But we kind of need to knock it off. We need to be respecting each other when we come to these situations. It is a hard thing to cross over into. There's a lot of different accusations, different words being used on what's in the library, people trying to do certain things, what they're trying to do. Respect each other, please. We did a pretty good job of it tonight. So, I mean, we can always do better. But as a whole, we need to come together as a town. If we start going at each other's throats, we're going to fall apart. So just keep that in mind. I support this resolution. I support Trustee Dailey in going after this. You know, we are the library board. We will be addressing things as the board towards the end of the year. It's already planned out. But this is something that we need to do. Ross does an amazing job at the library. This does come down to parenting, just like Mayor Pro Tem said. You got to be, if you're basically under the age of 18, so if you're 17 or under, you need to have something signed by your parent to be able to get a library card. We're not giving things out to children without their parent knowing that they have a library card. I wholeheartedly believe that Ross has no ill intent. Our library staff has no ill intent to hand out anything to children that may be inappropriate. I understand that there are plenty of people in this town that have differing views, different philosophies, beliefs, things of that nature. I myself am a Christian. I will straight up say that. I love Jesus, and I am going to stand up here and I will fight for every single person in this town. I will not use my beliefs as a sword, and that's not what Jesus taught me to do. And so up here, as your mayor, I will wholeheartedly support this. And as a Christian, I support this. And for this town, we need to come together. We need to work well together. I understand we're going to disagree, but let's try to keep the emotions in check and kind of just be able to have conversations with one another. I mean, we're seeing it on the national level. We can't do it there. How's it going to start? We need to start it here. So please just take that into consideration. Hearing no further comments, make it a roll call on the motion.
Trustee Gator,
No.
Trustee Dailey,
Yes.
Trustee Mason,
Yes.
Trustee Teets,
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand.
Abstain.
That will be recorded as a no vote. Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Absolutely, yes.
Mayor Shosse,
Yes.
vote is 5-2.
On to business.
On to less exciting news. Next, we have a resolution number 35-2022, Ms. Canfield. Oh, wait. No, charity. Yes, yes. Oh, yeah, that's right.
You're right. Keep reading.
The resolution for adding current staff to the Points West bank account.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees. So we had two options with this. We could either track down all the staff that are no longer here and have them sign the bank card, or we pass a resolution to get current staff and the current mayor on the bank account. I figured this was our path of least resistance. So I am asking you to pass this resolution so we can manage all of our accounts.
Are there any comments from the Board of Trustees? We will start with no comment. Ooh, all right, all right. Any comments from the public regarding this agenda item? Perfect. Can I get a motion in a second?
Make a motion to approve Resolution 35, 2022, a resolution adding current staff to the Points West account.
Second.
Any final comments from the board? Hearing no further comments, may I get a roll call on the motion?
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Dailey,
Yes.
trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee Teets,
Yes.
trustee Wiegand,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Yes.
Mayor Shosse,
Yes.
vote is unanimous.
All right, next we have Resolution 36-2022, a resolution authorizing and directing application of the Colorado Department of Local Affairs, DOLA, for grant funding for initiative housing opportunities, programs, and affordable housing initiatives. Mr. Byrd.
Thank you, Mayor. Cody Bird, Planning Director. That title's a mouthful. I'll have to work on that next time. Appreciate the board's attention tonight. What I'm presenting to you is a request for board support by a resolution to pursue grant funding for affordable housing programs and incentives development. Just to give you some background context, the Colorado General Assembly passed legislation creating programs that provide grant assistance for local governments to pursue programs and incentives for affordable housing in our communities. It creates the grant funding source that's allocated by the Department of Local Affairs, or DOLA, as we typically refer to it. It includes both planning grants and incentive grants the incentives are for construction activities. What staff is requesting is support for pursuing a grant for the planning program portion of that would enable the town to pursue incentive funding in the future when the timing is right, when we have policy development in place to pursue these opportunities. In your staff report, we point out that we do have support in some of our town documents and our comprehensive plan that has goals and strategies for supporting Housing Catalyst, which is the Wellington Housing Authority, as well as providing affordable housing options for residents. And the board's recently adopted strategic plan that also has objectives for, and I wrote this one down because I didn't want to forget it, pursue funding sources for the positive direction of the community and to identify self-sustaining strategies to prioritize affordability for residents. Those comprehensive plan goals and strategies and the strategic plan objectives feel very much in line with what this program would support. If we were successful in obtaining grant funding through this grant opportunity, it does require a 25% local match. The other 75% would be paid for through, or up to 75% would be paid through the grant funding. Certainly hope that you'll give this consideration so we can maintain the ability to pursue this. If it's not successful, then we can always reconsider the budget. I'll stay in for any questions that the board might have.
Trustee Wiegand.
Idea.
Great question. Thank you, Trustee Wiegand. We are suggesting that this total project cost might be around $60,000. I'm sorry, $70,000, with the local match portion being just 25% of that. We've gotten some information from some of the other communities that have been successful in completing these programs and obtaining contract services to complete a lot of the bulk of the research for housing needs assessment, the demographic analysis, the current and the projected market trends. These firms have a lot of experience in providing these types of studies and program assessments. So we feel pretty confident in that number and the local match portion of that.
Mayor Pro Tem. Trustee Mason. Trustee Dailey. Trustee Gator.
My help, I pull it down. Trustee, we can already ask one of them. And then what would be the approximate costs in terms of staff time, in terms of applying for the grant, also administering the grant on top of that local match?
So the cost for would be primarily staff resources, and we would handle the town portion of that internally in the planning and development department. We expect there'll be a few hours in putting together the application and materials. Once we have I assume that we would be successful in that. If we're successful, then we would have administration of the contracts, the payments for that, for consultant services, and staff review of the information being presented back to us from our consultants, bringing those presentations forward to the board for consideration. So this is staff time, and we feel really confident in our resources and our ability to provide that.
Okay. And then as far as moving forward, is there, I guess there are two parts to the question. What does the feasibility study open up for us? Like, what does that allow us to do that we can't do now? And then the second part of that is, once we do that, what is the shelf life of that? I mean, is it something that's good for 5 years? Is it something that's good forever? Just because obviously if it's only good for like 2 or 3 years, well, then we have to come up with construction money in 2 or 3 years. So kind of two parts of that, if you could just kind of explain, what does it do for us? And also kind of the shelf life piece.
Yeah, great question. It is kind of a two-parter, so I'll approach it and then help me back to the second part if I forget about it. But what we would be seeking in terms of consultant services is a firm, and the state actually has a list of preferred firms that have already been vetted through this program. So they have that experience and have been utilized in the past for this. But they would be doing a bulk of the research for the demographic analysis, for the community profile, and we would draw on existing resources as available. But they're also analyzing market trends. So how many houses of X price point are available in the community? Is it rental or is it owner occupied? How much multifamily is there compared to single family? And what are the regional nationwide trends? It will help identify gaps in our housing market. We think we have a pretty good handle on what those gaps are, but this would help solidify and quantify it in a meaningful way. We'd be able to use this data for a number of years, but in the short term, it would be primarily to develop programs, policies, guiding statements that we could adopt as a town and board support to enable us to apply for other funding sources in the future. We expect that the data would have to be updated and analyzed periodically, but the policy level development would be lasting across many years.
Can I interject? Well, I'm gonna interject real quick. Now correct me if I'm wrong. So a lot of the times when we have the opportunity to apply for something that's going to help with the housing, they come back, have you had a study done? And the answer is no, and you're immediately disqualified from pursuing any money through a grant for the housing, correct? In simple terms.
That's a very real concern, yes.
Okay, thank you. Second part.
Thank you. You answered my questions there. And then I know with a lot of the grants, I think those have been handled in other departments. So would this kind of be the only grant that your department is managing, or are you guys also managing a lot of other grants that we have ongoing, just in terms of the load level?
This would be the only, for board strategic plan, we're going to be pursuing other grants that are appropriate, and we'll allocate resources to those. Currently, this is the one that the planning department would be taking the lead on. I suspect that there's always grant opportunities. We're going to look for those opportunities. And if we aren't able to complete those, then we won't apply for them. But definitely we view it as a team effort. The planning department would probably take the lead on this one because there are a number of other grants already in progress.
Awesome. The only other question I had was for you, Mayor, because you do sit on the Housing Authority. I know in the interviews, there was a lot of discussion around people, they're trying to increase the amount of that. Is this something that, if they've discussed at all, or would this help kind of going towards the vision and goal that you guys have within the Housing Authority?
Yeah, so I mean, this would definitely help give us more options for our housing authority. Right now, and I believe it's 128 people are on our list for housing. We don't have it. If we want to have that and be able to provide for our growing community, we're going to need to be pursuing grants because, we're not in the best shape financially. And that's the best route to do it, to provide homes for those individuals.
Those are my questions. I did have a couple of just concerns from the board level, but when we get to that point, I'm happy to share those.
Perfect. Trustee Teets.
I do have a few questions, and some of them have been checked off my list. One was also regarding our local housing authority now. Would this study focus on items that we need to complete for our housing entity now, or only for those in the future?
Could you clarify?
So, and when I read the details of what the study was going to be doing, it was assessing for current development as well as new development. I know that there's a lot of things with our housing authority now that need to be addressed as far as outdated items and things like that. Can we look at grants securing stuff like that
So-
if we have the survey?
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Bird. This would be a study to allow us to pursue grants to take care of those issues for housing.
Perfect.
More or less.
Yeah, and thank you, Mary, and Trustee Teets, thanks for clarifying. That helped me understand the question. And I agree with what the mayor said. I'd also add that this grant is geared more towards the town side of things in assessing what the town-wide needs are for housing, identifying gaps, and then developing programs and policies to help achieve those needs or those gaps. So that's developing town legislation that would be considered by the Board of Trustees and implemented into our plans and documents and guiding principles. Then we would, as the town, would be able to better leverage funding resources with partners like Housing Catalyst, Wellington Housing Authority, Habitat for Humanity, other groups and other partners. This is kind of an enabling catalyst to take those next steps and really be more proactive from the town side to support those other groups.
Got it. Those are my questions.
Perfect.
My apologies, Mr. Mayor, I have to excuse myself.
Okay. Trustee Wiegand.
Appreciate what you're doing here. I know we need to have the study done or get the grant so we can get the studies done so we can continue and expand our program here. So appreciate all the work you're doing.
Thank you, Trustee.
Perfect. Any comments from the public regarding this agenda item? No. Can I get a motion and a second on this agenda item?
I make a motion to move to approve resolution number 36-2022, authorizing and directing the application to the Colorado Department of Local Affairs for grant funding for innovative housing opportunity programs and affordable housing incentives.
I second.
Final comments from the board. We'll start with, Trustee Dailey.
Yeah, I'll go.
Go for it.
At the Colorado Municipal League Conference, it was determined, of course, that affordable housing is the biggest risk facing Colorado communities right now. So it is probably no surprise to you or anybody in here that affordability is very important and how to do that. We have from this board's perspective in the past, kind of gotten a little poor feedback based on some of our methods to help with affordability, even through short-term grant funding options or other COVID-related funds that we distributed directly back to the community. What I think is wonderful, and from my shallow knowledge of planning in general, but I've seen experiences of it, and I've seen some examples that were highlighted as best practices at the Colorado Municipal League Conference of how creative planning policy can create affordable housing that will last and serve that community forever. And they're not things that you might think of automatically. They are incredibly complex in that they involve developer agreements and certain incentives and what that cost might be and how that works. And they are incredibly complex and how to pursue that. So given we have this opportunity in front of us to be able to learn more about how we could create that policy and move forward and only have to pay a quarter of it, I think that's a no-brainer. So I'm very much in favor of this and support it fully.
Trustee Gator.
So I know we haven't gotten to budget yet, but it was good to hear this was already a project that we were looking at budgeting. So I don't have an issue with pursuing the grant funding. The concern that I have is excuse me, the same concern I shared with Town Administrator Garcia at our meeting on Monday, is just that with the direction of the economy is going, I have no idea what's going to happen. But if we see the housing market struggle, we're going to be in a tough spot, especially with water utilities and things like that. And so I just want to make sure that we're being really careful. There's a lot of great things that we could be doing, but we have specific things, right? We're under state orders to get our water plant and sewer plant fixed. Like, those have to be done. And we have $4 million roughly in loans that have to be paid every year out of that. There's no way out of that. My concern is that, yes, there's a need for affordable housing, but okay, is that something we're under a state order? Are we taking on more things that we can handle? So the good news is it sounds like there's not other things that planning's handling right now. So that's great. It sounds like they can run that. Mr. Bird's competent. He has people in place to do that. Just my concern is I don't want to get into a situation where we pursue everything that sounds good, get a bunch of plans that then sit on the shelf because we're like, well, we can't afford to do anything with it because all of our finances are being tied up into other areas. So it's something I think we need to keep in mind. I very much appreciate staff bringing this to us. It sounds like that's part of it, but I know that was a request we made earlier in the year was, run things by us. So I appreciate you guys going through that and letting us know. So I am supportive of pursuing this at this time, but I think that we as a board we need to keep that in mind of what are the things that we are pursuing and being cautious to say, we don't know what funding is going to look like for the next 2 to 3 years. It could get great. It could get rough, and just making sure that we're not just going after everything that sounds good now, but that we don't have to do versus maybe being able to put some of those resources in other areas. So
well said. Trustee Teets.
I shared some of John's apprehensions when I was looking at this, but then I understood that this was helping set policy for the future as well. So that was a huge kudos to me, because while we might not be able to utilize or implement what they're going to do a survey on, it assists in a policy that helps guide us in future identification of needs. And I do support this because I think it's something that we all as trustees agreed affordable housing is a priority for Wellington.
Thank you. Trustee Wiegand.
I agree too. This is a 2, 5, 10, probably 20, 50-year project here. So we got to get our act in order and definitely need affordable housing up here. So good luck.
I'm in full support of the stepping stone to get this going. Cody, you guys do a great job. So yeah, let's get this money.
Yep, all for it. Thank you. Hearing no further comments, may I get a roll call on the motion?
Trustee Gator,
yes.
Trustee Dailey,
Yes.
Trustee Mason,
Yes.
Trustee Teets.
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand.
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Next item, provide guidance related to Harvest Village HOA non-potable irrigation system request. We have a request for guidance related to the Harvest Village HOA. Mr. Byrd, present the way.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Cody Byrd, Planning Director. This next agenda item, there's not any actual action, but we felt it was important to put it on the action items because we do need direction from the board for staff to continue conversations with an HOA in town relative to their non-potable irrigation system needs. I've provided you a staff memo. It's a little wordy when I went back and reread it. I was trying to provide some background context relative to some town history, some town policies regarding non-potable systems and raw water contributions, as well as some history regarding and then this is for the Harvest Village HOA, with their particular needs and their requests. The HOA leadership did come to town staff and express that they're experiencing some challenges with their non-potable irrigation system, which is important not only to their residents, but to the town as a whole, because it relieves some of the burden on our water treatment plant. But they're experiencing these challenges along with a couple of other challenges simultaneously that is going to put some strain on the HOA. I don't want to speak too much for the HOA. I do have some more detailed information. We'd like to be able to go back to the HOA leadership group and have broader conversations with them about what level of support or what things the town may be able to do to provide some level of assistance or partnership to help figure these things out. What we didn't want to do as a staff was overstep our authority to have those conversations and find solutions to bring back to the board, knowing that this is going to require some level of board approval to do anything. So we're really seeking guidance tonight, but it was important enough to put it on the action list for discussion. I don't want to repeat everything that's in your staff report, but a couple of things that I would like to highlight. The town's historic policy over a number of years when considering development proposals has been to utilize the existing agricultural wells to repurpose those for irrigating outdoor areas for the areas they've historically served. That is the case in the Harvest Village HOA. And just maybe noteworthy, or maybe not, but the Harvest Village HOA, it is noteworthy, so that's why I'm saying it. But the Harvest Village HOA actually consists of two wells, and those two wells are the same system that are combined serving the outdoor irrigation needs for the single family development, the townhome development, and the parks and open space and trail system along Box Elder Creek. So there's three different entities that all benefit from the functioning of this system. All three entities and the town as a whole have a benefit from ensuring that that system continues to operate efficiently. And none of us want that system to fall into disrepair. It does have expenses, and some of those expenses and maintenance obligations are outlined in development agreements, which has been a historic practice of the town. When considering those well systems being converted to irrigate residential lawns and open spaces, the town considers that when we write those development agreements, and typically provides a discount, a break, or reduces the raw water contribution requirements for that subdivision, knowing that that system will be available and won't be putting that increased demand or burden on the water treatment plant system to use town water for irrigation purposes. So that's certainly a factor when the town evaluates these, giving that discount or that reduction to those homes. They're not paying that portion because they're maintaining these systems. That language is fairly consistent across a number of our development agreements with subdivisions and HOAs across the town. So I bring that up, it's important because maintaining some level of consistency where this situation could come up multiple times is pretty important to make sure that we're fair to all of our residents in each of these different organizations. The development agreements do outline some specific provisions regarding maintenance, continued supply of water for the open spaces. They contemplate a reserve fund balance that is in place. A portion of each lot sale at the time of development gets placed in escrow to fund that escrow balance. And that is to be maintained, in this case, $30,000 for maintenance of the pump system. And that's on top of the other operational costs for sprinkler heads, controllers, and other things that are all integral to the system operating. And we recognize that as costs have increased, inflation over time and everything else, that $30,000 that was agreed to a number of years ago may or may not be the cost of replacing and maintaining some of those systems. We believe that's at least a portion of the challenge that the HOA is experiencing in terms of evaluating what options are available to them to make the needed repairs for the system. So I'm getting a little wordy and I'm going to try to wrap it up. Provide some additional background in the staff report. I know you've all read it. What we kind of concluded with is we're seeking guidance on what you would like staff to go back to and present as options to the HOA. We've identified a few options. I don't believe that this is an exhaustive list. I believe that there are other options out there that could be considered, but among them, we refer to the ability to draw down the reserve balance in the development agreements for these HOAs. The HOA is required to obtain permission from the town if that balance is drawn down below the minimum required amount. And we feel that that very well may be appropriate in this instance to allow the HOA to utilize that balance for these purposes. We also think it might be advantageous for the HOA to be allowed to build that reserve balance back up over a longer period of time. So it eases the burden on their HOA fees to refill that balance. Some other topics of conversation that I don't have all the details, but we understood that there's some additional concerns that there's the transition between the developer and the HOA, that some things may have fallen through the cracks in terms of tree replacement and the town street tree requirements. If you drive through the subdivision, you may notice that there are a number of trees that need some attention. And I think it's very appropriate to consider one of the options being to not be very heavy-handed in replacing those trees that need maintenance, extending that time period with some agreements that they will be replaced over time could be a good option to help at least alleviate the immediacy of some of these other repairs that are a little more important. We threw out the option of a special improvement district. That's a financing tool. Would require a vote of the benefiting properties and majority votes required to implement that. But it's basically a funding mechanism where the town uses its bonding authority to pay for those improvements, and we assess the costs back to the benefiting properties on a pro rata share. It's collected over time. It's a means of using the town's good bond ratings to secure low interest debt and spread the cost over a longer period of time where it's not a one-time fell swoop to the residents of those districts. The town of Wellington hasn't done one of those, but I've done those in Kansas in my past experience. They're actually fairly easy to implement. I don't want to say easy. It's a process. It takes some work, but they're a good tool to be used for sure. Once we, I'm sorry.
Somebody show me the easy button on that. I'm ready.
Sounds like a lot of work over
It is a lot of work. I will say I've done a lot of them in my past career. And so it's a tool that I'm familiar with and would be able to provide some leadership on that. And then there's also the option of just using town funds. We know that we've got a tight budget. I know that was referenced earlier, and the board hasn't considered all of its budgetary needs for 2023, especially for additional requests like this, but that is an option that it can be considered, either using town funds with no repayment or with repayment. There's a lot of ways we could structure that. So we're really just looking for board guidance on if any of these sound palatable, if there's something that you've thought of that we haven't thought of, and we want to be able to have town staff go back and work with the HOA board members to find solutions to help ensure that these systems continue to operate efficiently. I want to wrap this up, but I also want to acknowledge Joe Rosner is here from the HOA board and would like to share a few additional comments, and I'm going to stop talking so that he can do that.
Thank you very much. Joe Rosner, resident at Harvest Village HOA. Appreciate Cody, appreciate the town meeting with us. We love this wonderful community. I did want to just fill in a couple of blanks as well to get as much information to you as possible as you are drinking from a fire hose tonight. And I've served on boards and dealt with budgets and run very successful national multi-million-dollar businesses. So I'm sure your brains are full and you got a heck of a work session ahead of you. Mainly Harvest Village Hartford Homes was the developer. Harvest Village, our board was established and turned over from the developer the end of last year. So over the last year, the board members, we have worked diligently to learn as much as we can. We appointed a new landscaping company, Foothills Landscaping. There were no as-built, so they had to go through, and we spent a lot of money doing exploratory work to fully understand what percentage of the irrigation is Harvest Village townhomes and single family versus what is servicing the town of Wellington's public spaces. And they determined it was 40%. So as you read through those details, that's what we were asking for help with, is just the 40% of it that we didn't feel it would be fair to ask for our homeowners to pay for that or incur a special assessment or increase HOA dues. Hartford Homes sold everybody on $35 a month HOA fees. We had to raise those to $42 a month. If we see these other expenses, we know we're going to increase our HOA fees. It's inevitable. And we've made that very clear to the community, but we're trying to manage this as fairly as possible and as reasonably as possible. And then also taking all factors into consideration and being respectful of the taxpayer dollars as well. So I just want to say on behalf of the community and the HOA board, thank you for meeting with us. Thank you for Cody and team being diligent in digging into all possible scenarios and opportunities. And we just would love the opportunity to have further discussion on those solutions together collaboratively. So thank you very much. Appreciate everything that y'all do.
Thank you.
Did you have any questions for me?
Trustee Gator.
I do have a question.
Sure.
What's your HOA fees right now?
$42 a month.
Does that include the swimming pool?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looking to move?
It is. Yep.
Trustee Gator.
Do you guys know roughly what the cost is going to be of these improvements that are needed to make sure the wells keep functioning smoothly? Do you have a general, I mean, I'm sure you don't have specific.
We did put a down payment on the controllers. I don't know if you have that figure.
This was
Beautiful. So it's $47,389 total.
Okay.
We put our down payment to get all the controllers, all of the hardware locked in on pricing. So we've already done that to make sure that the work can be done, and we're already moving forward on the work. Once the wells are winterized October 7th, they're going to begin work on that through October and November. That way, when they recharge the wells in the spring, we're not behind on that work, and everything can be troubleshooted effectively. Yeah.
And you answered my other question, which was how much of the water are we using? So you already answered that one. So I appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. So my question is, would we be able to water the pocket park over there or the green spaces without this irrigation system and the 40% that we utilize?
No, we wouldn't.
So we would not be able to pretty much take care of an area that we as a town committed to?
That's correct.
Got it. And you said 40% is actually what we are utilizing
Correct.
of that water over there?
And Foothills Landscaping has documented that.
Got it. We have, to my understanding, because I was actually able to meet with your HOA. I'm very grateful for you guys reaching out. For my understanding, we have access to the well house and all of the controllers as well.
That's correct.
Got it.
And then the town of Wellington management team, landscaping team, they do have access to that, and then they adjust the controllers and the zones and the programming as they see fit. The problem right now is that the controller is so antiquated. We're lucky it lasted this year. So that's the fortunate thing, is we've squeaked by, but we have to make this repair.
Well, we as a town are lucky it lasted this year.
Yeah.
Perfect. Those are my questions.
And this probably is for Cody. What kind of break did we give them on the water hookup fees per building over there? You know what I'm talking about.
I do, yeah, and unfortunately, there's not an easy answer to that. This development occurred over a period of time, and the development agreement went through a couple of changes as the plans changed. The townhomes weren't originally contemplated. The park space was re-envisioned at a later date than the original agreement. So some of the units that were built originally had one discount off of a uniform water capital investment fee, which was a much lower rate than we charge today. That included the tap fee and the raw water component at the same time. And those received about a 1/3 or 27% reduction on those units. Later home units were receiving a 50% reduction based on the modifications, changes, and density of that development. So the actual quantifiable amount has changed over time. Staff has not gone back to put an exact number to that. It would take quite a bit of legwork to do that. And we know that those discounts were received because we've tracked it on our building permits. We have not tabulated a total. And if, I know that was a vague answer. Was that, I can dig it deeper? Okay.
Can I throw one more thing in though? It is my understanding too, we built our home in August of 2020. And we were notified by Hartford, the sales office, that the hookup fees for water went up by $25,000 per house, the next house that was sold after ours. And then that was going on indefinitely. Now that's information that I have that I'm sure you have actual documentation of. But I know gas, like utilities, also went up, I think, by 25K per home as well.
Thanks, Joe. And that's a great point, that the towns before or between the start of this development and the completion of it, which there's still homes under construction here in this subdivision. But during that period of time, the town's impact fees and raw water contributions have changed a number of times, mostly up, one time down. Another factor is that we changed our policy on whether we would accept cash for the raw water contribution or whether we would accept shares. The developer did provide shares for a number of the housing units that have been built more recently. And so there's a lot of differences there where it's hard to compare apples to apples, and the timing is certainly a challenge to sort that out. Mayor, if I may, I wanted to go back to one other comment a moment ago on the percentage of town usage of the system. I may not have a complete and full understanding, and we're happy to go back and readdress this as a staff. But we were kind of under the impression from initial information that the 40% was derived by the number of zones on the system out of a total approximately 130, that the town has about 40% of those zones. I don't know if that water is metered to know what the consumptive use is as compared to just the design of the system. I don't really know that it's pertinent to get into those details tonight, but we'd love to continue those conversations with the HOA, make sure we have a full understanding of what those numbers are and how reliable they are in terms of assessing costs.
Perfect.
My question's related to the 40% idea too. Mr. Byrd, within the development plans, is the town liable for maintenance of the park irrigation systems, or is that included within the development plans as maintenance from the development?
So it's maintenance of a park is probably two parts.
Okay.
There's the maintenance side, which is like the playground equipment, the surface and the swings, and the maintenance of the grass and the mulch and trees and things like that. Then there's the irrigation component. Under the development agreement, what these agreements say, and again, same language throughout most of our development agreements, is that systems that are being used to irrigate town property or open space, public spaces, that the town, when we accepted that development agreement and reduced the water contributions or the raw water costs or the tap fees, et cetera, part of that consideration is that the water supply will be there. The town may be responsible for repairing a broken sprinkler head, repairing the distribution lines to make sure that the portions that touch the public property, we wouldn't expect a private HOA to come in and maintain sprinkler heads on town property.
Okay.
So the maintenance of the distribution system, the pipes and sprinkler heads that irrigate those public areas, is the town's responsibility. And the development agreement outlines that the responsibility to own, maintain, operate, repairs and maintenance of the pump systems and the control systems is the responsibility of the HOA. Part of that consideration for those impact fee and raw water trade-offs. So that language is in the development agreement, and that's what we're basing this conversation off of, that the town doesn't have a responsibility to do that, but we recognize the value in making sure the systems operate. So we want to look for creative solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, so Mr. Rosner, thank you for coming down tonight. And we did get Trustee Teets and I did get a chance to speak with Ms. Lucas and Ms. Capizzo about this. So I got to get up to speed on it a little bit. Just so the public's aware, page 5 of the Memorandum of Agreement for Public Improvements, Box Elder Commons Filing 2 specifically says The HOA shall maintain the pumps, vaults, wells, and the irrigation system serving these single-family lots, Tract B, Tract C, and Outlot A of the development. The town shall operate and maintain the portion of the irrigation system supplied by the non-potable water system and used to irrigate town property and Tract A, which is adjacent to town property, as well as Tract D and any other public lands within or adjacent to that development. So it is very clear there that it explicitly says that the HOA is going to maintain these wells and things. However, there's another odd piece that I noticed on page 5 of that same MOA, as well as section 4.05 of the Harvest Village Covenants, which states that, and Patty, maybe correct me on, well, I'll give you what it is, and then maybe you can tell me. The town shall be a member of the homeowners association, shall have one vote in the association, and shall pay one residential assessment per year or per month, presumably. I'm just trying to understand, have we ever paid them HOA dues as far as that goes?
No.
Okay. The reason why I ask is because the MOA was signed in 2014. And if we're just doing some rough math on that, 42 times 98 is 44,116. So do we owe the HOA any money?
I might recommend too, that there could potentially be an in-kind trade service or something for the mowing and things. I've heard about that before. I don't know any details, but.
So I think maybe we're getting a little off track.
We can,
Go-
regarding the question, that is something we are looking into, and with the changeover in finance staff, we're trying to track down that sort of information, because every HOA, we should be a member of each HOA in town, and we should be paying some dues. Unless there's something in some sort of agreement somewhere that we haven't seen yet. So we will certainly look into that and let you all know.
And but before you get going here, I'm just in the interest of moving things on. I would be interested in supporting the first 3 possible alternatives listed in the document. I don't know personally that I would be about considering town funds, especially since this is not something we're doing for any of the other HOAs in town. But certainly the first 3, as far as the board goes, those would be 3 I'd be willing to support.
Thank you. Before we, are there any comments from the public regarding this agenda item?
Trustee Mason, you hit on exactly my concern.
Yeah. Podium, please. State your name.
I was whispering over there. I apologize. My concern is basically what you touched on, setting a precedent of doing something for one HOA that we're not doing for another. And I think that could come back to haunt us in that case. That's my one concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Cholet. I live in the Wellington Downs HOA. I don't think it's any secret to anybody sitting on this board that I'm pretty fiscally conservative. And this is going to kind of sound a little heartless, but frankly, raise your HOA fees, because we pay, and we don't have a pool, folks. We have a very small, teeny tiny pocket park. We pay $150 at the beginning of the year. That's our HOA for the year. We pay $350 every year for our non-potable water. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars in reserves, so that if something is broken in our neighborhood, we're capable of fixing it. We're a neighborhood of 110 homes, but we take responsibility for the agreement that's within our development. And I'm sympathetic, but I don't have a pool or what other amenities come with their $42 a month, but they're paying roughly the same as I do. And we can take care of our stuff. So I'm all for the town helping them work it out. But ultimately, if you all carry the bill to begin with, they still need to raise their fees. And that's not being mean. And I'm all for helping my community. But at the same time, we need to have some personal responsibility here. There are other HOAs in this town that also make sure that they have what they need. And if they don't, this is a news flash to look and make sure that you do. So that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you.
Tim Whitehouse, Grant Avenue, Old Town Wellington. Yeah, I would support what trustee Mason suggested about, I that look for a different payment plan or something, but the mineral content of the water around here, a pump blows out in about 6 to 7 years, whether it's stainless or not, they just don't last because the hard water mineral content. They replaced the well, the whole thing on my shop property twice in the time I've had it. So it's a known maintenance issue. I think if the development agreement suggests that the non-pot water, which is part of their water allocation and cost of the development, if that open space is tied to that development agreement, they got to fix that stuff and they got to maintain it. I mean, the fees sound low to me, but I think if this is similar language across the town starts kicking in town funds for this park, I'll tell you, it's not going to stop here. So I would caution you against that route. That's all, but thank you.
Thank you. No more public comment. All right, we'll bring it back. Can I get a motion in a second on this agenda item?
I don't think we're taking any action. We just need to give.
Oh,
direction.
yeah. Are there any final comments? Start with Trustee Gator.
That's okay. So I don't have a problem with the 3 that Trustee Mason suggested. I would like to get more information from staff in regards to, okay, what percentage of the water use is happening from the town? And then if we can figure that out comparably, is that the same at every HOA?
Right.
If we're using 40% of the water everywhere we are, great. But if we're using like 3% of the water everywhere else, but 40% here, then that's a big difference. But if it's roughly the same across the board, then we need to look at that. But if it is something where, hey, in this case, we're using more than we normally would use, then I would say, okay, what do we need to look at it being? Maybe kicking in a portion of that. I agree. The first 3 are great options. Creating more districts and things like that, I don't think I would want to go down that road. But I think that I definitely would want to get more information on what is our usage of the water at and how does that compare with other places that we're using water.
Yeah, Mayor. I will, I made myself a note to do some more digging on that. I will tell you, I know that not every HOA has public property that's irrigated. So I know that that's not a one-to-one comparison. Every one of them is very unique. So we'll do some more digging, but I know that they're very different. This one's probably higher than most based on the amount of open space. We'll try and put some quantities to that.
And that's what I'm looking for. And I get it because, right,
yeah,
some neighborhoods don't have it. So, but comparably where we are providing that type of a thing, where are we at? So that'd be great.
Thank you. Trustee Teets.
Just a clarifying question that was brought up. The parks and open space belongs to the town of Wellington or the HOA? The pocket park, the large open space belongs to the HOA or the town?
So the open space along Box Elder Creek and the trail, some of the fields between the trail and the emergency access road and the park itself are town property. There are other portions of the open space that are part of the Harvest Village townhomes. Currently, most of those properties are still in the development's name because we haven't gone through the process of final acceptance for some of those.
Got it.
So we are still transitioning, if you will, on the ownership of those, but they're intended to be town property for the trail segment and the large field and the park itself.
Got it. On that, I would love to, know a lot of the details of the questions we'd kind of asked earlier with the allocations and understanding of those agreements, but also look at what Trustee Mason suggested, as well as what the HOA also comes back at us with. That would be of assistance as well.
Thank you, Trustee.
I think I agree with Lisa on this one here. I don't think the town should be putting any more money into this. They're getting benefit with the parks over there. I mean, that adds to the value of their homes. The swimming pool, My HOA doesn't have that. So again, I mean, there's so much benefits because of the way they developed that HOA over there with the swimming pool, with the open spaces, with the reduced tap fees originally. I know they're catching up right now, 10-1. That's probably fairly equivalent to what the other developments are right now.
Could you run that by me again? I was making a note and I'm,
The amount of the tap fees that we're charging now to the harvest, is that pretty much similar to what we're charging to the other developments now? Or are they still getting a break?
so the reduction is typically based on a percentage, but the fees over time have increased, so the
Right.
percentage.
But they're still getting a
the-
break probably from other developers building right now?
Most of the buildings, most of the new homes that are being constructed now are all on a non-pot system, so they all have similar reductions.
Okay. So
And-
they're
and
all very similar. Okay.
They are pretty similar. I won't say it's a
Right.
one-to-one match. I'd have to dig into the nuances of each
Right.
agreement, but I think it's a very fair statement that the new homes that are being built now are all in non-potable communities that have a reduction on the water and raw water.
Okay. So they're catching benefits there too. And again, with the reduced HOA fees that they got, I mean, they got a hell of a deal over there right now. So if it does have to go up, if it does have to compensate a little bit more, if there has to be some special assessments, they chose to live there. Hopefully the HOA people have told them that is always a possibility when they build in there. As a last resort, I think we could possibly come back with number 4, but I think the 3 initially would probably be the best solution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. One question I have on the HOA fees. Did you guys raise those after you found out about the pump? Was it reactionary or was it proactive?
As a budgetary decision last year in the
Okay.
fall, we made the increase to the raise of the HOA fees. We didn't learn about the controllers failing until this spring, early
Okay.
summer.
So proactively, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do not want to set a precedent by doing some crazy stuff, but I am definitely open to further discussion, seeing what we can do to help in some form or fashion. So yeah, alternatives wise, I think the top 3 are where I would go, but Trustee Kenny.
Yeah, if I
Or
could-
Dailey, sorry.
It's okay. I didn't even catch it. Actually, every time they asked me to vote, I was like, who are they talking to? Okay, it's me. First and foremost, we need their system operating in the spring. Like that's no brainer there. And then I'm curious, of course, what the penalties associated with them not having that functioning would be, because I've talked about that. We've heard about that in the past and I don't remember the details. So if they have a non-pot system that is not functioning, what are the penalties associated with that? Or how do we monitor that? Could you remind me? This is something
Well,
that.
But
is that about us seeking alternatives though, or is that something that we discuss later?
That's a policy from my understanding,
yeah,
an existing one.
I think the concern at a high level, and I'm not trying to skirt the question, but I don't know if it's, I'm not sure yet if it's germane to the guidance that we're needing.
Sure.
But I respect the question and I will suffice it to say currently that because those communities with a non-pot system received that reduction for the raw water component, they have not supplied the raw wet water or the cash in lieu to provide water for outdoor irrigation for those communities. And because of that, arguably those communities don't have the right to use town treated water outside the homes.
Okay.
Enforcement of that could be a lot of different things, and I don't want to, hazard guesses on that, but that's the biggest concern is that the town's treatment system was not contemplating irrigating all those open spaces and yards with town treated water.
Okay, and I agree with everybody else. The top 3 look like great items to continue pursuing. I do want to open up the option of 4, essentially because they really just need our endorsement. It would be a decision amongst their community whether or not they're doing that. And given the amount of money at a low financing opportunity that we could help them with, that would likely be more affordable than them having a drastic increase to immediately cover those additional costs through HOA fees. So the reason why I'd want to consider that and leave that open for consideration is because they may be able to come to the same financial solution, but without a significant change to each household monthly. And I think that would be great for them to balance and see. I don't know what it would be. I think it would be significantly less. In the past, special districts have been bad, naughty words to a previous board. So I don't know if that's necessarily the case, and they don't necessarily have to go on forever if they have a
So-
specific goal.
I mean, to headline it, I mean, we're all kind of in agreement that some combination of the above would be appropriate.
Yeah, I just don't think we should pay anything. We are not responsible for that,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I think pursue non-monetary means, I guess, is what we're coming to as a board.
Initially, but.
Yeah,
still looking
right,
at
yeah.
what we-
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, because last thing, yeah. Cool. So we're all good there? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
very much for
Thank
your
you.
guidance. Thank you. Good night.
Okay. Now we'll move on to the Liquor License Authority. We'll now close the regular meeting, time being 9:30, and open Liquor License Authority Board. Oh, time being 9:30. Make it a roll call, please.
Trustee Gator,
Here.
trustee Dailey,
Present.
trustee Mason.
Here.
Here.
Trustee Wiegand.
Here.
Mayor Shosse.
Here. The only item on the Liquor License Authority is the consent agenda, which consists of renewal of applications of Papa's Table and Sol de Jalisco Mexican Restaurant. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Make it a roll call, please. Or yay, nay?
Trustee Gator,
Yes.
trustee Dailey,
Yes.
trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee Teets.
Yes.
Trustee Wiegand.
Yes.
Mayor Shosse.
Yes. We'll now close Liquor License Authority at 9:31 and resume the regular meeting. Any reports from the town attorney?
I've sent out a number of items to the board, last few days and, week. As always, feel free to contact me with any questions you have, but otherwise I have no update.
Perfect, thank you. Ms. Garcia, do you have anything to report?
Just one thing very quickly, Mayor and Board of Trustees, I'd like to start first by acknowledging the ongoing efforts of our water and sewer rate structure roundtable that has been working since May on the water and sewer rate structure. The roundtable members have been invaluable to this process and have provided great insight to the proposed structures that they will be presenting to the trustees on September 20th, 2022. There were 10 individuals appointed to the roundtable who were recommended by a trustee or are a chair or vice chair of the board or commission or representing the businesses of Wellington. I've understood the individual representing the businesses did not attend 2 of the 4 meetings. As staff, we do our best to predict the questions and concerns from the Board of Trustees. Staff was concerned that the business community was not represented due to their appointee missing 2 crucial meetings, which prompted the creation of the Commercial Water and Sewer Rate Structure Survey. We've heard loud and clear from a majority of the roundtable members that they feel this survey undermined their efforts on the roundtable, and I would like to apologize for that misstep. It was never our intention to undermine the roundtable, and at this point, I'm just holding on to those surveys, and if they are needed at some point in time, we will have them available, but they are just set aside for now, and the survey's been closed. I wanted to express my gratitude to the roundtable members made up of residents whose opinions, ideas, and thoughts have created some viable rate structures for Wellington.
Thank you. Any reports from staff? No. Okay. Larimer County Sheriff's monthly report, that's coming up. Sergeant Sherry.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Good evening.
See if I can do this whole technology thing.
And since we've struggled tonight a little bit, I don't know.
Computers are hard.
Not hitting who's there. You don't have an option to share. Oh, there, hold on. I just showed up.
Can wing it if,
Hold on, getting it. We're getting there.
Okay, it's gonna promote you to panelists and you'll need to accept it.
Accepted.
Oh, we kicked them out when we lost our internet. That's what happened. We were all set up and ready to go.
That happens.
Yeah, it does.
There we go. Look at that.
You're there.
Golden Pony Boy.
She's gonna live.
All right, everybody there? I'm gonna try to make this short and sweet. This is talking about our July report. July was obviously a very busy month. In fact, I'm trying to get my brain away from July as much as I possibly can, especially with any conversations about fireworks. But our deputies that were assigned or not assigned to the town of Wellington put in about 176 hours. Our investigations division continues to do some phenomenal work. They've been spending considerable amount of time in Wellington working cases. Most notably is the burglary, a couple burglaries up in Wellington. Couple cases or some items of note. Our deputies received phenomenal training. July, they were able to do basically a tactics day, which is about 8-9 hours. By doing building search training, active shooter, trying to prevent officer ambushes, high-risk traffic stops, hostage rescue. A lot of this training went into helping the decision-making for some of our deputies on a case that's noted where we had a male suspect that was threatening the deputies with a knife. He refused to drop it, and the deputies made some phenomenal decisions that resulted in being able to take this individual safely into custody. Our deputies were injured during this, but we didn't have to do anything more harmful than tasing this individual. And this individual later made the comment that his intent was to have us shoot him. So it's because of all of the really good training that we get that allow their deputies to make really good decisions. As I said, our investigations division's been super busy. There was a burglary at the Taco John's. 2 suspects are now in custody as a result of that. As I said, they continue to amaze me. On to some of the call times by month. These are all patrol and other calls for service. That's the deputies that are not assigned to Wellington are doing, and I'm not get there. That are not assigned to assigned to Wellington are doing, and we almost doubled our time from June to July on just a lot of additional work by deputies from outside the town. Moving on to some of the July totals, dispatch, officer initiated activity. When our deputies aren't responding to calls, I expect them that they're getting out there and they're doing a lot of self-initiated activity. Unfortunately, our activity dropped a little bit, as did some of our dispatch calls. Dispatch calls I can't do anything about, but self-initiated activity we can. The only thing that I was able to attribute to a decrease in some of that activity is we had Corporal Downing and Deputy Schultz. They were training new deputies. So that tends to take away from some of our self-initiated activity, and we had one of our deputies on vacation. So that's the only thing I can kind of attribute it to. On to some of the July calls for service. Nothing that's really jumped out at me. I looked at a few cases. You know, anytime you see a 500% increase in anything, you go, oh my gosh, what is going on there? But nothing that got me too excited. I looked into some of those burglaries. We had a couple burglaries that are about 11 days apart on opposite sides of the town. One was a business and one was a residence. Unfortunately, we don't have any suspects in custody for those. Obviously, you notice the fireworks complaints were up 176%. from the average over 2019 to 2021. I'm going to continue on away from fireworks as fast as I possibly can. I noticed that we had a lot of cases, a 243% increase with missing persons with children and adults. This is anytime, so if a juvenile runs away from home or somebody doesn't come home when they're supposed to, this is the type of call that gets classified. I reviewed all 8 of these cases, and all 8, the folks were successfully located. Anytime there's a juvenile that's missing, that amps up our response a little bit. Not only are our on-duty deputies handling it, but we get a hold of investigations. Sometimes some of our search and rescue folks, that type of thing. All of these missing persons were kids that were upset with mom and dad, took off and were found later. Some few adult cases where somebody was worried about their significant other not coming home when they should, called us, and then they return home at a later time. So pedestrian, I'm just going to toot our own horn a little bit. Pedestrian contacts. This is any time that we go out and contact somebody that might be walking around that might be suspicious. You'll notice that there's a 185% increase in that. We're contacting a lot of people, late at night if they just appear suspicious. Hey, what's going on? What you doing? And then determine whether there's any criminal activity. If there's not, then we move on. Notice that traffic stops, our deputies have been doing a phenomenal job at 71% increase with that. And our deputies are doing a great job with warrant attempts and arresting people with warrants. On to some of the crime type averages. I already covered some of these, some of the burglaries, the vehicle trespasses in Wellington. Used to be a really big deal. One of these calls, there's 2 calls. One, somebody said, hey, somebody's breaking into my neighbor's car. And it just turned out to be the neighbor getting into his own car. So that wasn't quite a vehicle trespass. And then somebody else's car was legitimately entered, but it was unlocked. I talked about some of the missing persons. Nothing else that's really jumping out of me. In fact, some of the stats are slightly lower than the month before. On to some of the traffic stats. We're writing slightly more citations, issuing a lot of warnings. I'm okay with some of those percentages. We've consistently, over this year, made more traffic stops than years prior, which is fantastic. Looked at some of these motor vehicle accidents. We've talked about this before. Anytime we're doing a lot of traffic stops, you would expect that motor vehicle accidents would go down. A lot of these are somebody got rear-ended, somebody backed into another vehicle, those types of things. We did have a rollover crash where somebody rolled their vehicle and then they disappeared, and we couldn't find them after the fact. I think that's about it with that. The next couple of slides are basically just letting you know, hey, what are some of the busiest hours? You'll notice that some of the busiest hours are between 8 and 10 o'clock at night. Our power shift and our swing shift easily handle that. And if I can get my way, I'd like to get our agency to a 24-hour coverage up here in Wellington, moving some people around so that we have somebody during the wee hours of the morning. I'm gonna kind of blast through that a little bit. And on the very last slide, just talking about response times, this got my attention because that's average response time was considerably higher than the prior month. And then you also notice the low response time in minutes was also very high compared to previous months. I dug into that a little bit. And the only thing that I can attribute that to is fireworks calls. When we're getting hammered with fireworks calls, they tend to pend a little while longer so that we can get to them all. Years past, if a fireworks call was put into pending, they would take it out of pending after 30 minutes if there were no additional calls. my direction was that we're not going to do that. That's for the future. That's somebody calls in, doesn't matter how long it holds, we're going to get to it. And as I said, I think that's why this number is a little more increased for July. That is all I have. And do you have any questions for me?
The only question I have, appreciate the work you guys are doing. How have things been going? I know you guys have been doing a lot of traffic control down by the school. How's that been going with the high school so far with the intersection and all the concerns we've had?
Sure. A lot of the things that we thought would happen have not. We've been doing a lot of extra patrols in those areas. I don't think you can find a day that you don't see a deputy in the school zone by the new middle / high school. We're also trying to increase our patrols over by Rice and Icestone. So far, I'm not seeing any issues with whether it's coming and going for school or during the football games. The traffic is just, I guess, I don't want to say smooth, but we haven't seen any issues. Some of the issues that I thought would happen over on Highway 1 have not. I think that some of the stop signs in the area just kind of stagger the traffic out just enough that it allows people to merge out onto Highway 1. But so far, I haven't seen any issues. Yes, knock on wood. We have, I know, I don't want to jinx it. We have written a number of citations, and our traffic unit's been up in the area, working the area as well. So I did meet with principals of Rice and Icestone elementary schools, and I just assured them that the new middle / high school wasn't going to get more of our attention. Wanted to make sure that they understood that business as usual, we're still going to be around.
Mine was related to speed limit signs. So I know I had noticed that there's been some questions regarding the speed limits, the 20 mile per hour, 40 mile per hour. Is there a tentative plan or suggestion for that to maybe increase by 10 miles per hour or stay at the 20 on the far sides of that? Has there been really any thought to that as far as the speed limits?
And you're referring to by the middle / high school? Right.
Yes.
So backing up a little bit, between the town and the school district, we waited a little too long to get the speeds reduced. We had school, I don't know, a week or two, maybe it was a week before I talked to the town, and they made things happen almost immediately. They got new stop signs out there, carrying 64/9. That really slowed people down, got the speed limit reduced to 20. That was a conversation that I had with the town, because we just got to do something here. The problem that I see right now is just the funding for some of the additional signage to establish an official school zone, because that is not a school zone.
No.
It's just a 20 mile per hour speed zone. So my hope is that once the funding is made available so that we can establish a school zone and actually have the flashing lights that designated as such, that we can at least bump the normal speed limit outside the school zone hours about 5 miles per hour. And that would be consistent with what we see over by Icestone Elementary and Rice Elementary. Those are 25 mile per hour speed zones all the time, except for the designated school zone hours. And then those drop down to 20. So those are some additional conversations that I have to have with the town to figure out what that's going to look like. I don't think that any of these signs or flashing lights, the solar powered lights, I don't think that they're very cheap. But I think once we get that figured out, we can make that happen. I'm comfortable, although I don't think that the nearby residents are, with a 20 mile per hour speeds sign or speed zone, just given the number of children at all hours coming and going to and from the school, whether that's before, during, after, and I think even on the weekends maybe. So I think that once we're able to get the school zones in, I think that will be an easy change. So.
Perfect. Thank you. I just know I've seen a lot of questions around that to know if it's going to adjust or not. So
just for the people that do like to watch and aren't here to kind of ask.
That'll-
Awesome.
Yeah, that'll be
Thank
my
you.
recommendation, but we just got to get some things figured out first.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for your service.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Are there any board reports? Start with trustee Dailey.
All right, we have there was a couple references to this. I want to make sure everybody knows it's available. There was questions as to what's going to be included in the budget, what's not. So one of our super fun events that we did last year and continuing this year is the budget bonanza, where you can come get a free pumpkin. What's that? Oh, bonanza. I was like, what? So our awesome staff is putting that on it this year. Again, there'll be presentations on all the pieces of the budget and opportunities for you to give feedback for the board to consider. So please come to that, and there will be several other opportunities as well. So that's one of them. That's on the 18th of October. 3 p.m., like right after school gets out, I think, right? Yeah, so it's perfect. You walk from, if your kids are at ISON, you walk straight through here, get a free pumpkin, learn about budgets. It's fun. I kid about that, but it is actually a fun event. You learn a lot about the town. So you should definitely come to that. I heard some comments about needs for recreation facility and specifically pickleball, which is like a brand new phenomenon that everybody loves now. I know everybody loves it. So, I'm continuing my search and tours of different recreation facilities. Our awesome staff has also put together a myriad of opportunities in how other surrounding areas have funded their rec centers. So there's so many different options and ways it could happen, but now at least we know what those rec centers did. So we have some more opportunities and information to consider. I wanted to give a very special thank you, and they didn't hang out, but I know that they wanted to do this, but I wanted to give a heartfelt thank you to Carter, who's the Eagle Scout for Troop 96. His efforts, planning, education, and implementation of all the beautiful landscaping that you see in front of this building is essentially part of his project that he's doing as a service project that Wellington essentially is receiving as a gift. It was incredible coordination. Unfortunately, online, people are very concerned about how this was being paid for. So I want everyone to know that this is a service project for an extremely generous young man, 15 years old, who dedicated so much of his time and effort to beautify and help improve water conservation, everything like that associated with our library. So thank you to him. And moving on, we met with the Wellington Main Street Program Exploratory Committee again, and we are really refining a lot of the new memorandum of understandings between both the town and a nonprofit, and the town and DOLA, Department of Local Affairs. We also put together a very specific job description and roles and responsibilities of that potential person who would support the program. And then how much of their time would be spent towards Main Street versus other economic development opportunities. So we talked about last time and how we could potentially use the Main Street benefits to extend beyond Main Street to all businesses in the town of Wellington. Those benefits are being seen continuously. We're working on the final budget proposals, job description, memorandum of understanding. The idea is that what we are going to be bringing to the board would be a fully completed package deal of an option to adopt. So we're continuing to do that. We meet frequently. Many hours have gone into this. So thank you for everybody who's been involved there. We met with Solid Waste Policy Council. Based on the direction and feedback from this, I've asked for a very in-depth consideration of our current intergovernmental agreement. I don't think we're getting our fair share, and I think the other communities are a little frustrated as well. So we're going to do a deep dive into actually what we should be doing and what we should be getting, and bring that feedback to that group. everybody in that group that was represented at the meeting was also amenable to doing the same activity. And we're also going to be looking at the strategic plan for solid waste for Larimer County and ensure that we're following those priorities as well. Last thing, in Centennial Park, you will see and enjoy new park equipment as a message from the Parks and Rec Board. New park equipment as early as September 20th and 21st. So come by our Old Town Park and see brand new awesome equipment for our kids. So that's going to be a really cool improvement. And that's all I got. Thanks.
All right, so I did have a couple of items. So I did want to start off with our first bus to Fort Collins will be happening tomorrow morning. So we, after years of working on this, our first conversation started back in 2020, I think, with myself, Betty, Adriana, Ms. Garcia, then the mayor came into that. We met with several people from the Hispanic community multiple times. And then Ms. Garcia and I have continued to meet with Betty and Adriana, and they've just been huge drivers to help figure out ways that we can help. And so to understand, like, it wasn't that the whole purpose was to do a transportation study. It was in the conversations, we realized this was low hanging fruit that we could address some of the areas that they were trying to figure things out that would be beneficial to them and potentially other parts of the community as well. So very excited. Tomorrow will be our first bus. So that will be going into the downtown station at Fort Collins. So it'll be leaving, hold on, let me pull it up so I don't misstate the time. All right, so it will be leaving Wellington at 7 a.m. And so then just driving straight into Fort Collins, and then there'll be a return trip at 7:30 a.m. So if anyone wants to come from Fort Collins up to Wellington, and then there'll be another trip Wednesday afternoon at 5:30. We'll leave Wellington, go to Fort Collins, drop off, and then pick up anyone in Fort Collins who wants to come back, and they'll leave Fort Collins at 6 p.m. There will also be a Saturday. So the Saturday will be in the morning at 10 a.m. will be the pickup in Wellington, and then dropping off in Fort Collins, and then another pickup at 10:30. And then Wellington will be another pickup at 3:30 going into Fort Collins, and then picking up at 4 o'clock in Fort Collins and returning to Wellington. So this is a huge thing because it's, you know, the town had the old senior center bus. The senior center was gracious enough to work with us on being able to utilize this to do the pilot program. Betty was able to find an organization who was willing to donate funds for this project. So this is not being funded by taxpayer dollars. This is being funded. I personally put some money in. Betty was able to get donations. And so that's exciting. It's members of the community saying, hey, here's a need that we have. We're going to work together to make this happen. So very exciting to, you know, see what happens. And really Fort Collins is excited, and that's great. If we show that a lot of people are using that, it gives us that option to figure out, okay, what do our next steps look like from here? Whether we work with Fort Collins to connect into their system, whether we do our own, it gives us some data to work with. So our goal is very excited about that. So that will be starting tomorrow. The second thing that I wanted to bring up is we had a conversation from Ms. Garcia to the board about what are some things that we could do. And this actually started back with the finance committee. It's saying, what are ways that we could help to show more appreciation to staff? So then Ms. Garcia looked into things and found that potentially there was some funding. And then we found out, no, we don't actually have the funding. So I believe we currently have roughly $27,125.09 is the number that is from our grant with Main Streets Open for Business that was put together for staff salaries. We did not use all of that. And so we believe that it would be possible for us to look at actually putting something together to be a appreciation bonus to our existing staff members. And this would probably go in about Thanksgiving timeframe. So just before Thanksgiving paycheck, that way they can go Christmas shopping and things like that. It would come out to roughly, with 59 employees, it would be roughly $459 per staff member. So did want to bring that idea to the Board of Trustees. I know we had looked at the possibility and thought, no, we probably can't. Now it looks like we actually have some of the grant funding that was designated for salaries. And so this would allow us to actually just give some appreciation to the employees on that. So if that's something that the board is supportive of, then Ms. Garcia can go through all the details, figure everything out, and then bring us back an actual full-on,
Without a doubt,
report and action, whatever we need to do on that. So so very excited about that. And then in line with that, we also had talked about the last meeting about doing an appreciation lunch. I know Ms. Garcia is still working on meeting with her leadership team, so I don't think they've gotten dates yet. That is tentatively, we're looking the week of the 3rd through the 7th of October that's the customer service week. We're definitely not going to do a Friday. We're tentatively looking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is potentially the days to do that. And really the idea behind that is us as Board of Trustees, reach out to other residents, people that we know, and just show our appreciation to staff. I've already talked to one business. They're happy to be a part of it. So with this, I'm not looking to say, hey, businesses donate everything. What I'm thinking we'll probably do, because if we want people to be able to pitch in, is if the businesses are okay with it, say, hey, let's figure out, you're willing to provide X, and then tell me what the total cost is. And then can you basically run a bill? And so we can tell residents, hey, you can go to this business and you can give them $40 to help pay for the appreciation for staff, because they can't give money to us because that breaks the law. Dan get mad at us. So we can't get money from them and then give it to the business, but we can have the business just basically have a tab and they can just say, okay, this, I've gotten everything paid for. And then we as trustees can also donate to that. I'm going to be doing some food myself. So just to keep you guys up to speed on that. Sometime that week, Wednesday would be like ideal, but again, Patty's going to talk with her leadership team and figure out when that works best for staff. I would just say, talk to people that you know that would love to help show appreciation to the staff. And then if you've got other ideas how to go about funding, go for it. My idea was just do something like that, have the businesses run a tab, and then we can have people come in and just pay the businesses. So, and then whatever they want to donate, they can donate on top of that. So that's what I got.
We're going to finish with board announcements. Yep. Trustee Teets. Anything?
I have nothing at this time. I will talk at next meeting.
Trustee Wiegand.
I appreciate the opportunity to be working with Rebekka on Main Street. It's been very interesting and I think very productive. So thank you.
Perfect. I have nothing. Trustee Mason.
I do have one thing. The Larimer County Regional Opioid Abatement Commission. Geez, it's always a long one. There is an advisory seat available for that currently. If you'd like to apply, we're looking for a county member that has had lived experience with opioids. I think preferably we're looking for somebody that's either been addicted in the past and has been on the recovery cycle or something like that. But if you know anybody that would like to apply for that, please do have them either reach out to me. I think possibly we're going to post it on the website as well. And you can also go to the Larimer County Board of County Commissioners page. There is a link to the Regional Opioid Abatement Council there, and you can apply on that page as well. So.
Perfect. We will adjourn the meeting. And we'll convene for a work session after a vote. Time being 10:02. You guys want to continue on for the work session?
Do we have the ability to have this meeting at a different